Peace and blessings, family. This is your brother, asarimhotep with the Martin Delaney's Center for Egyptology. And today is Umoja, Sunday, June the 2nd, Black Music Month. And this is the Mbongi Open Forum. And so if you want to talk about something specific, the lines will be open in just a little bit, where you can ask your question in the chat. We'll discuss ChatGPT and its usage to validate arguments and the flaws in doing such. Kemet and the purpose of degrees and self-study. So we'll discuss all of that and more when we come back in just a moment. And we are back. I'm chilling outside today, so you might hear some wind and some dogs maybe. But nonetheless, oops, don't want to play that. No, I'll keep this in the background for today. But I want to welcome each and every one of you for joining this discussion, and it seems like in my absence, the internet has been running wild on various arguments and claims and accusations, and so we will address all that and more a little later. But first, I want to just give a shout out to the people who have made themselves known in the chat. So peace and blessings, live from planet Earth is in the building. Brother Mathis is in the building. Teti Ursima Atra Seneferu is in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Brother King Sosa Presents is in the building. Everything is everything, as well as Sister Mika, Tamika One, is in the building. And looks like our good brother Wujawu is in the building, as well as Chilimwe is in the building. So I want to thank each and every one of you here. And I'm sorry, I missed a few. So want to shout out our good brother Jehuti Ma'at, who is in the building. Lamar Pope is in the building. Peace and blessings to you. Shout out to Mr. Metro. He says, has the AI become the ops? No, AI hasn't become the op. It's just that we are, well, at least I, as a computer scientist and software developer, and one who studies and practices in machine learning, I know its limitations. And so for those who aren't in that field, they'll look at something like ChatGPT and not understand exactly what it is and think that it's more than what it is, right? So we'll discuss that in a bit. Sister Gigi is in the building. Kofi Campbell is in the building. He says, does AI mean socialist calculation problem has been solved? I doubt it. Mr. Metro, our good brother Sheffrin is in the building. It says a Sumerian Bantu. Let's get to it. Cool beads. Edward Nigma 9x9 is in the building, and AC1 is in the building. And so I'd like to thank each and every one of you all for joining the conversation. And as I stated before, this is a open forum, or I should say an open forum. And so I want to just kind of address something first. So let me actually pause the music. Let me mute it for a second. And because I want to replay this video that I played in our last conversation regarding the nature of science. And peace to This Is Kayal. Thank you for joining the conversation. And my bad. And Sean P, who was in the building. Peace and blessings to you as well. And so I'll continue. This notion that I love when us as African people are into science and technology. However, there are those who attempt to be communicators for science and scholarship and research methods and don't know the first thing about either. And it is these particular issues in the scholarship realm and research methods that keep getting this social media community in trouble. And I apologize for the wind.
Your field of study, most people would say,
And it'll spike. So if y'all can hear me, I will. Sound went out. Can y'all hear me? Said it's choppy. Hear me? If y'all can hear me, let me see. He said, but it's choppy. Alrighty. Am I still choppy now? Let me know. Let me just add y'all to the stream. And if y'all can hear me, am I still choppy now? Y'all mics are on mute.
Hey, Peace, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yeah, you were sounding clear, but then it goes back into being choppy.
So I'm choppy right now.
No, right this second, no, you fine.
Okay. Um. So let me see. I'm seeing two of y'all there. So let me remove that one from the studio. And alrighty. So what I was saying is that, for those of you who are listening via Twitter or X, y'all have to come to YouTube to join the conversation, to get the link to join the conversation. So so you can't hear me again?
No, I can hear you. Everything you just said. You said people
Okay.
from Twitter need to come over. We can hear you.
Alrighty. So yeah, because Neil Spites in a private message saying he can't hear me. So that might actually just be you. And I'm going to mute you because your background. You just got to mute yourself. I'm just going to remove him for the moment. Alrighty. So here is the clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson on his show Star Talk. I'm going to go to about right. I don't know. I think it was like 8 minutes, and I don't know. It was around here this time. And so what I was saying is that there's a number of us in the community who are advocating for science, but are communicating how science is done wrong. And they use jargon out of context and wrongly, and it gives the impression that the person advocating for the science doesn't know what science actually is and how science is done. And so you'll constantly hear, for example, Brother Unk talking about overturning. Like I heard on a show about overturning the Afro-Asiatic, and that my work overturns that, in a da 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 da. And it's a shame that we have to do this every so often, because somebody just doesn't want to listen and read and study and do science, right? So I'm going to play this particular clip. Neil Spite, I don't know why you keep I'm just going to kick you out for a sec, because you just keep coming in and out. So when I open it back up, come in and we'll try again that way. So I'm gonna do that. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna let Neil deGrasse Tyson play for the moment. All right, here we go.
Study is, I bet most people would say, would be the most mind-blowing science that anyone does.
Wow.
Because it's just it's out there.
Yeah.
I could talk about stars and planets, and there's a tangibility to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Even the size, even the expanding universe. It's a little weird, but it doesn't blow your mind.
Yeah.
You think about stuff that's like, what?
Yeah.
Right.
One of my favorite experiences when I'm doing research is when I have a huge shift, when I'm shocked by something and I realize I've had some kind of preconceived notion that has just been shattered.
Nice.
And it's really amazing. I'm following the science. I'm not dragging it along.
Right.
And yeah, it
Many people who
literally
don't
blows
know-
your mind.
Many people who don't know the moving frontier of science think, and I think want to believe, that somehow we all sit around wanting to agree with one another.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in fact, the advances come when someone says, I have an idea. Was it Isaac Asimov said that true scientific discovery is never eureka.
Right.
It's that's odd.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a little thing.
Totally.
And it's like,
Absolutely.
wait, that doesn't fit that.
Yeah.
What
And
is that?
I really appreciate what you're saying. I really feel that debate is not actually how scientists operate.
Oh,
They
no.
don't sit there trying to win an argument. That would
Right.
be so
Because it doesn't make any
unscientific.
sense to do that.
No, not at all. You
Yeah.
want to say, wait, what are you talking about? And
Basically, it's I call BS.
yeah.
That's really in a nutshell.
Right, and
Like,
that's
I call
how-
BS.
yeah.
And then you got to set about to prove it.
So, Janet, what I think you're saying is the way I've described it is two scientists in an argument, there's an unwritten contract between them.
Okay.
Okay. Either I'm right and you're wrong, you're right and I'm wrong, or we're both wrong.
Both
Right.
wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we can't agree at the end of that conversation, we do agree that more or better data will resolve it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
In
then-
which case, you could both be right.
Well, so yes, so there are the rarer case where we're both right.
Right.
If in the classical example of the blind people touching an elephant, they give completely disparate accounts.
Right.
Okay, one is the trunk, one is the leg,
Right.
one is the toenails, one is the tail,
each have a
one is the
piece.
tusk, and we can argue what the actual nature of that animal is, but at the end of the day, we're all correct because
Right.
it's all part of the same animal.
And then there's a bigger vision.
The bigger vision. So
Yeah.
the bigger visions are often very hard to reach, but that can happen, and it does. It can and does happen.
I totally agree with you. One thing that drives me a little crazy is when people say, "Oh, science is always overturning what came before completely and rewriting. So why should I believe it?" And that's not true.
Yeah,
so
it's not only not true;
Yes.
it's very false.
it's very false.
Very false.
So if we were logicians, we would care about that distinction. So if I look back at what Newton did, it is absolutely a part of the elephant, an excellent description of a part of the elephant that he was able to palpate at the time. Einstein comes along
Palpate.
and it's bigger.
That's the one. That's
See,
that's
That's like a
that's the
SAT word
novelist
right
in
there. Right. Okay.
So, Einstein comes along and has a bigger vision, but he absolutely requires of his work that it match Newton,
Yeah.
right? Not that it has nothing to do with Newton. Suddenly, when I pour my coffee, it doesn't go upward, right?
Right.
So,
So
it's
Einstein
cumulative.
enclosed Newton as a special
right, a
case,
bigger view.
within a larger understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Right. It was not overthrown. It
Exactly.
was
Extended.
extended. Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Right. We don't always anything that was experimentally determined to be true previously does not all of a sudden become false.
Right.
It becomes embedded in a deeper truth.
Yeah.
And that's true for even when you look at continental drift, which famously had delayed acceptance among geologists. All the while, they're still trying to understand volcanoes and they're still trying to, and so they're coming up with local accounts for what would happen in a volcano.
Right.
When they had continental drift, that just attached to the continental drift. And there's a lot of that science that was completely portable into the new idea that the
Yeah.
surface of the earth moves within
Right.
itself. So,
And I'm gonna pause it there. And what he says at the latter part is very important, because for a lot of arguments, for example, in the case of Kemet or the validity of Afroasiatic, for example, when Neil deGrasse Tyson said that once something has been scientifically demonstrated, then there's no amount of science that's going to happen that can overturn something that has been scientifically demonstrated to be valid. However, in both the case of Afroasiatic and the meaning of the word Kemet, those concepts have never, and let me pause for a second. Sorry, the police sirens were mad loud. And so anyway, so the notion of the validity of an Afroasiatic, for example, had not been proven via the comparative method, which is the scientific method in linguistics that is used to prove the validity of a language family, which is why linguists from around the world called the method that was initiated and continued, initiated by Joseph Greenberg and continued by others like Christopher Ehret and Roger Blinch, et cetera, et cetera. Hold on. Sorry, I live near a police station and fire station. So so you kind of hear this all the time. So anyway, so when you are asking about the validity of Afroasiatic, you notice that they can never pull up the work that demonstrates and shows that the comparative method was actually used when establishing the language family. And that's because it doesn't exist. And so when somebody like Unc makes a statement that, you know, an Mboli or an Obinga or an asarimhotep, they you know, think they can overturn Afroasiatic. Afroasiatic was never established, despite people's belief in it, right? And this is what we continue with citation after citation, proving that it has not been done, even by people who believe that one day Afroasiatic or a Niger Congo or a Nilo-Saharan will be established. And so, and then the fact that, you know, in this community, they think that arguing on social media panels settles debates. And what I want to do is I'm going to remove that video real quick, and I'm going to play another video from a gentleman who currently is a PhD candidate at UCLA for astrophysics. And he has a TikTok channel and I believe as well as an Instagram. And, you know, he talks about astrophysics concepts. So, you know, not only does he study this, he wants to be a communicator of science and astrophysics. And so of course, when, you know, if you're Black and you're doing science, people always question your intelligence and alike. And so, you know, he gets bombarded by, you know, trolling comments, just like what we do here on YouTube. And so he's responding in this clip to a comment, and what he says reinforces what Dr. Tyson and his guest were saying earlier in the conversation. And so I can't pause this one, so I'm just going to let it play in its entirety. So here we go.
This is the last thing I'm gonna say about it because it's really not that deep. But if you have never been a scientist, never done science, but you have this anti-science attitude and you think that debates mean anything, I'm actually empathetic because you don't know what science is. And it's understandable. Like if you've never gone through that process, it's understandable that you don't understand what science is actually about. A debate is irrelevant. You don't win by getting into a room with your friends and talking shit. And it's not first take. Nobody cares about who's your GOAT. Your opinion's irrelevant. Science is just about showing the evidence. The debate in science is, I have my theory that I went into the lab, I got the observations, I laid them all out, I presented them, I published them, and you have a competing theory. Here's what you do. You get your little shit together, you go ahead, come up with an experiment, figure out how you can get these observations, collect them, analyze the results, come to some conclusion. Be sure and list your methods. We got to know exactly how you got what you got so that we can repeat it, because it's got to be repeatable. It has to be verifiable. It has to. You got to list your uncertainties. They have to be reasonable. They have to be appropriate. You got to list all your biases and all the assumptions. And you have to be able to rule out any alternative explanations for the results that you think that you have. That's it. And if you do all that, people are going to read through and they're going to be convinced by the evidence. They're going to be convinced by the method, by the evidence, and they're just going to believe it. That's it. That's the game, man. It's not, there's no debate. You think there's a debate? A debate doesn't matter. If you can't do that, then maybe your idea is not good enough. Maybe it's not right. You should be able to do that. You can't, otherwise you just sitting back talking, asking to debate the experts. Hey, Neil deGrasse, I'd love to debate you anytime. What is that gonna do? You don't understand science, bro. That's not science. It's like a grown-ups game. Just show me the facts. We don't gotta get into all this. It's not politics. Donald Trump and Joe Biden debating who got the least dementia. Like, it's not, they can do that. That's fine. That's fine. It's a popularity contest. But here, this is an evidence contest. Who has the best evidence? You got better evidence for me that supports your theory? All you got to do is show it. If it's true, the evidence is out there. If it's not, you just going to try to debate me behind closed doors. That's not the game. And again, I'm empathetic. I don't want to be condescending or act like a dickhead. If you don't know and you don't understand what that process is, it's understandable. But a debate, like, and this like sarcastic, like reverse psychology, like, you won't even debate. Like, come on, that's not that. What is this, bro? What is this? You're acting like a child. What is this? That's not what it's about. Just show the evidence. That's all anybody cares about.
Got, the gist of what he was saying. And when you speak to people who do this for real in real life, and then you see what goes on in social media, you have people who have opinions about stuff, and they think they're going to resolve the opinions by asking the opinion of somebody who is an alleged expert in the field, neither which have studied in depth the subject in which you are talking about, right? And we don't care what people coined the phrase demonstration beats conversation. That's what scientists do. And what I'm finding is that people are really telling their level of competency because they don't understand when the evidence is right there in front of them to be able to judge, which is why we say this is something you gotta do. You just can't say that somebody said something. Well, let's go through the process and demonstrate it. That's exactly what you do in the realm of science. Not your opinion, not debate back and forth. That's why we write the text. Because just as he said, you write your text. You have a methods section. You have, and it's getting warmer out here in Philadelphia, so all the bikes are out. And I need to get me a bike so I can roll with them. But anyway, so you put your method section together, you write it out, and people just agree or they don't. It has to be reproducible. Anybody who is in the field and studies the subject should be able to reproduce what you produce. It's a doing game. That's why I don't sit on the internet and argue with a lot of you Negroes. Because you don't do anything. And it's like talking to a brick wall for people, for example, who don't believe that they have to learn about how to do historical comparative linguistics to judge a linguistic argument. People who think that they don't have to read and know meta nature to discuss issues about meta nature in the language. It's asinine. Like this community is backwards. And this is why I have to read. For example, I'm gonna share my screen and I'll just do the entire screen for the moment. Right. And I'm just gonna let me hide that for a moment. I'm gonna make it big screen, right? So that y'all get this. So just got to figure out which one of these. I think this is it. So Dr. Modupe Oduyoye, that was published in this text, and at the beginning of this text, he states the following: it is possible for me to approach the enterprise, and keep in mind he's a theologian as well as a historical comparative linguist. It is possible for me to approach the enterprise of proving that the religion of the Jews has its origin in the religious tradition of Africa by concentrating on that. Is not the end of the project. And proving a point depends on who is assessing the evidence. You can never prove any point to the satisfaction of a skeptic. Once, therefore, one is satisfied that one has carried one's investigation to the point of satisfying oneself of the adequacy of the evidence, one must leave skeptics at that point beyond which they are unable to go and proceed with one's larger enterprise. In other words, he's saying a lot right here, but one of the major things he's re-emphasizing, which is why I have it bolded in red, and proving a point depends on who is assessing the evidence. So you have people who don't study the field who are trying to assess evidence, and for years, instead of just buckling down and studying, taking some courses, they just rather argue on YouTube and then have the audacity to think that they don't have to study in order to assess the evidence. No serious scholar believes this. And which why we have YouTube enthusiasts versus scholars. And then it says you can never prove any point to the satisfaction of a skeptic. It is a fruitless endeavor. If they are not knowledgeable enough, or they are not intelligent enough, if they are not competent enough in the subject, nothing that you say or produce is going to convince them otherwise. Which is why every single time when individuals who are not serious about the discussion want to argue with me, I just simply say, you're right. And let them be. Because there's nothing that they don't have the mindset to understand what you're talking about. So let them be in their ignorance. They need YouTube views. And so before I go any further, Brother Ujamaa, you got anything to say? First and foremost, welcome to the Mbongi. And
Peace.
peace.
No, not yet. I'm just listening. But when you kind of open it up, maybe I have some comments. So far, I'm listening.
It's funny because these because they are so incompetent in the subject matter, they think going to ChatGPT is going to resolve the issue for them, not knowing that artificial intelligence is not intelligent. That is, artificial intelligence is a marketing ploy. Computers only calculate. We program to give the illusion that the computer understands you and can help you with your problems in a way that you can understand. Right? It's an illusion. And ChatGPT or any large language model, there's a reason why we call it a large language model. The large language model is designed to be able to communicate as if it was a person, which is why for those of us who study machine learning and large language models, we also study what? Linguistics. Because we have to translate human language into machine language and have the machine be able to respond back in a way that will convince a human that a human is behind the technology. And we have this saying in computer science, trash in, trash out. Because your model is only as good as what you train it on. If you train it on a large skewed data pool or a large biased data pool, the outcomes are going to be skewed in trash. That's why professors don't allow you to rely solely on a ChatGPT in classes. In order to use ChatGPT in a modern time, you already have to be very knowledgeable of the subject to be able to competently ask it questions and to know if it gave you a right answer or not. In other words, you already have to be an expert to be able to verify and come behind ChatGPT to see if it is valid. And I saw on the I believe it's a Pseudo Killer show that y'all had a conversation where y'all was trying to answer some questions via ChatGPT. That's Unk's thing now is ChatGPT. And those of us who have tested ChatGPT thoroughly know you cannot rely on ChatGPT not to do no research because the computer cannot research. It can't think. It can't judge. It can't analyze data. You know, for those of us who had to study how to, build neural networks and know about supervised and unsupervised learning, right? And how to design a neural network and system on the nodes and how to devise weights and propagation and back propagation of data, how to make it learn and all of this other kind of stuff. We know what the limitations are. And this is it's just sad in this day and age. For example, like, let me share my screen again. Is right. So I'm gonna share this right here. So this is ChatGPT. I saw that they were trying to verify if Afro-Asiatic was valid and if Mboli's work was accepted in in linguistics, right, or by linguists and the like. And anybody knows, first and foremost, if you're asking about in English, it's not going to reply to you for the most part in French or German sources. And Mboli's texts are written in French, even his linguistic journal articles, which it does not survey for English speakers unless you specifically type in something requesting those sources. So in this here, because Unc and them don't know how to use ChatGPT. Let me make this bigger here, right? I asked it. I made this statement. I said,
Excuse me. If you collapse the left, it'll make it bigger. Like the
is that
right
it
there,
right
yeah.
here?
There you go.
All righty. Right. So I asked it this specific question. I said, Jean-Claude Mboli is a linguist from France. Can you provide source material that critiques his 2010 book, Origine de langue africaine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So notice what I did. I introduced the author, and I specifically asked it to provide the source material that critiqued Jean-Claude Mboli's work. The specifics, I gave the full title in the year that it was published. And so this is important because on the Pseudo Killers show, Unc had typed in a prompt or had someone else type in the prompt for him, asking about critiques about Jean-Claude Mboli's text. And when it gave some critiques, and it's going to repeat a little bit here, right? Now, the source, later on in the conversation, Ujawu, somebody came on the panel and asked Ujawu to ask for the sources for an earlier prompt that they did and the prompt that they had for Jean-Claude Mboli. And the prompt gave citations that did not address Jean-Claude Mboli's text. One didn't even exist. That first one that they had didn't exist. The second one I have, and I could pull it up, and it does not mention Jean-Claude Mboli at all. And then the other three citations, I believe, were published years before Jean-Claude Mboli's text came out. So the way that the prompt was, it just said Jean-Claude Mboli, not understanding that he has written journal articles as well as and now released 2 texts, right? So when I asked ChatGPT about this, it says Jean-Claude Mboli's 2010 book, which we mentioned earlier, and this is the essays on the application of the comparative method on to African languages, ancient and modern, right, has garnered both interest and critique in the academic community. The book's primary aim is to apply the comparative methods to both ancient and modern African languages with the goal of uncovering linguistic relationships and historical developments. One of the main critiques of Mboli's work focuses on his methodology and assumptions he makes about the linguist evolution of African languages. Critics argue that Mboli's division of Black African languages into 4 stages, archaic, pre-classic, classic, and post-classic, lacks empirical support due to the absence of written text from the proposed stages. This critique is rooted in the principles of diachronic linguistics, which require historical written evidence to substantiate claims about language evolution over time. Now, I'm going to pause right here, and we can continue reading, but I want you to notice that the sources that is provided here is, I'm going to click on it's the same source that he has here, right? So when I click on the source, oh, and I forgot the way that this, so I'm going to unshare it and then reshare. I've got to unshare it and then reshare so that you can see. I'm just going to do the entire window this time, right? So what it pulled up is Dr. Clyde Winters, a blog post that he made in 2014. Now, those of you who know about Dr. Clyde Winters in this very conversation know that this is the worst source that ChatGPT could have used. Why? Now, keep in mind that this conversation that Clyde Winters is having on this blog post is a spillover from a heated conversation he and I were having on the Egypt Search forum, the EgyptSearch.com forum, right? And Clyde Winters never read the book. And he's making critiques based upon the table of contents that I shared on the forum. We were on a phone call with Clyde Winters, myself, Brother Wujawu, and Brother Unk. And Clyde Winters on our phone call had the audacity to argue that he doesn't have to read the book to make a critique. And we asked him, if your students came to you in your classroom and you assigned a book report and they turned in an assignment and hadn't read the book, you would accept that as a valid assignment? And he said yes. And that's when I knew that you could not take Clyde Winters serious for nothing. He didn't read the book. He didn't understand the book. And so he has a whole blog post that is now in the data set of ChatGPT. And he got the stuff all wrong. He didn't even translate certain things right. So at the time, I believe as well that the first book of Jean-Claude Mboli's, you know how Google Books will allow certain pages to be shown? There were certain pages that were shown, and he and read some of the pages. But Clyde Winters doesn't read French. And again, and we knew this because he tried to make a critique about something here that was on the page that had nothing to do with what he was talking about. And this is the stuff right here when he was talking about the cows and stuff to this nature. Right? Like his response, none of this stuff Jean-Claude Mboli said in the text. He just saw words and then he responded. So like this is the level of scholarship that Clyde Winters does and why nobody takes him seriously. And no serious scholar cites Clyde Winters. Right? Like he's a truly in the pseudo-scientific camp. But this is what's in ChatGPT is giving the arguments here. It's cited here 2 or 3 times.
With what you just shared, even in that blog post, he actually said that he didn't read the book. I don't know if you highlighted that.
Hold on. I'm trying to agree and close. So ChatGPT sitting here, it cites a sense critic. It cites a source here that just mentions the book, but no critique. There's nothing on this page. And this is a source that ChatGPT is citing. But let me go back to, let me see if, okay. He says clear as day. I have not read Mboli's entire book. Let me make this bigger so y'all can see. He says, I have not read Mboli's entire book, but I have read summaries of his book. And so he clicks on you scribe. So so the summaries of his book, this is a website that I believe is selling the book. I don't know. And all it has here is the description. If that, this isn't even the full description of the book. So not only did Clyde Winters not read the description, I mean, not the book, he didn't even read this description. But this is the trash in that comes into ChatGPT. And which is why you always have to follow the source material. You got to request the source material.
And then
so this,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, then further down, he says that he read summaries, but it really wasn't a summary. But then right below that, he said that he read the Google preview. When you go to Google Books, Google will right usually have a preview, right? A preview of the book. And Jean-Claude Mboli's book is about 600 pages. And Google preview is only going to show a very limited amount of information, and it's not going to even be consistent. It's going to skip around. It's going to have breaks in what Google even shows you. So out of a 600-page book, Google will show a certain percentage. And I believe on his book is about 60 pages.
Yeah.
So you could read
66 pages.
Exactly.
And you're getting a little bit of the intro. It skips and then jumps like, if that, like it skips. So it says here pages 72 to 630 are not shown in this preview,
Right.
and it's
Pages.
been this way. So like he didn't read the book, so he thought that he could get that he could subvert reading the text. And this is the kind of stuff that Unc does, right? He doesn't read the book. He thinks he could get by a summary or a commentary from somebody, and think that is sufficient enough to speak intelligently about a work. And this is outside of having any expertise or any just rudimentary knowledge of the field itself. So this is why I can't take this community serious when it comes to this information, because ChatGPT is giving sources that don't exist, ghost sources, and then it does provide some sources. Hold on one second, while this helicopter rolls over the. Anyway, so
so you live near an airport, a fire station, and a police station.
no, I live near a military base. There's a militia base not too far, and then there's the fire house and the police station.
You in war zone. All right, now go ahead.
This PA. This you know, but so like this is why we don't use ChatGPT to do research in this way. Like we don't use Wikipedia to come to a decision. You have to develop a skill set. And so and I saw let me go back to, let me get out of there, right? And so I want to go back to the conversation maybe here, right? So this is from, kind of jumping the conversation. So they tried, to, and I've addressed this before, and I'm not going to address this again. Whoever's intelligent enough to get it, right? I'm showing how how mathematics and linguistics and computer science, you have to learn all of it, right? And these are the books that I was assigned, for example, mathematical linguistics, right? But then I go into, because there were some people who had their panties in a bunch when I said that Dr. Teofilo Benga did not have degrees in linguistics. And they tried to argue me down on this. They just believed, didn't do any kind of research or whatever. They just went to the University of San Francisco and saw an old bio that was up there. And it says he has done advanced studies, not got advanced degrees, advanced studies in history, linguistics, and Egyptology, in prehistory and linguistics and philology, et cetera, right? He took extra courses. He took postdoc courses on these subjects. His degrees are in history, right? And so people are trying to tell me that, just because you study software development, computer science, and mathematics, you can't speak on things on linguistics, right? That you need a degree to talk about linguistics. And I said, if that was the criterion, then you would have to throw away all of the major scholars who do linguistic work and who have published, like I have, on linguistics, right? So as one of the source materials, there was an interview that was done and published in this article that was titled Past Afrocentricity, Reassessing Shekinah Diop's Place in the Afrocentric Frame. African writers have been marginalized and grouped as Afrocentrist. But for all Afrocentrism's rage against the dogmatism of the last 500 years of European hegemony, it is itself dogmatic. And that is the title. And I don't know why that is so goddamn long, right? And so it is written by Lafayette Gaston, and it was for the Liberator magazine back in 2009, right? And so in the text, it starts talking about the Dakar School, right? The building of Egyptologists. And for the record, Shekinah Diop wasn't an Afrocentrist. And we can have another discussion about that at another time. But people think that just because you speak on Africa, that makes you an Afrocentric. You know, Afrocentricity is very specific. It's a discipline. And just because you speak about Black folks doesn't mean that you are Afrocentric. Anyway, so the foremost of Obinga Mbochi first learned, and it should be Obinga and Mbochi, or a member of the Mbochi ethnic group, first learned about Diop's work in the 1960s, meeting him through friends while studying at the University of Bordeaux in France. The two eventually became close, sharing ideas and traveling together. Diop, having witnessed the ideological dogmatism of the academy in his own attempt to attain a PhD, advised Obinga to concentrate on a topic that was less threatening. Thus, after having studied at the University of Geneva, Obinga studied both Egyptology and linguistics while at the Sorbonne, receiving his PhD in history, meaning he took classes, like I stated. His dissertation was written on the Kingdom of Congo. And notice the numbers behind these statements, like 33, 34, 35. When you go back to down to the article, you will see that these are the sources. So for 35, it is Gray Christopher, Concepts of History and the Works of Shekinah Diop and Theophile Binga. And also Theophile Binga, Personal Communication, September 16th and 17th in 2008. So he told the author this information, that his degrees are in history. And he took classes, like Shekinah Diop took classes, linguistic classes. I took linguistic classes as part of my minor in African studies. I told you who a few of my teachers were. I studied under in the Arid school. That's what gave me my start in this process. Right? When you go now to Shekinah Diop, his BA was in philosophy. He received 2 masters in chemistry, and his PhD was in it was either in history or anthropology, not Egyptology, not linguistics. But he took courses in linguistics. One of his teachers was the late Lilius Holmberger. Right? Then we get to Dr. Christopher Arid. Everybody be so quick to cite Christopher Arid. Christopher Arid is a historian. All his degrees are in history. He doesn't even teach in the linguistics department. He was in the history department. So Dr. Christopher Arid, Dr. Shekinah Diop, and Dr. Theophile Binga all had their focus in history. And linguistics is one of the tools that they use for historical analysis. Right? Then you have Roger Blinch. who all of his degrees are in anthropology, not linguistics. But he, like Christopher Arid and like Theophilo Bingen and like Sheikh Anta Diop, he took courses, right? Then we have the magnus opus. This is Dr. Joseph H. Greenberg. And I see on the commentary, like when this information was about to be brought up, all of a sudden Cedric and Brother Unk had to leave. They had other things to do because they didn't want to be faced with this information of Joseph Greenberg's own words. Joseph Greenberg wrote an article titled "On Being a Linguistic Anthropologist," where he discusses his education in linguistics and why for him not getting a degree in linguistics is an advantage because he was not forced to accept dogma. So let's read what he says in the article. He says, from the foregoing account, it should also be clear that I did not have any coherent training in linguistics. I became an anthropologist by training, but to a large extent, I made myself into a linguist, meaning he was an autodidact, right? Paradoxical, I should say, as it may seem, the absence of an organized program in linguistics turned out, I believe, to be an intellectual advantage. It meant that I had no fixed emotional or intellectual commitment to the structuralist approach which dominated American linguistics during the earlier part of my career. At Columbia, from the first, I gave courses in such topics as language and culture and linguistic field methods. At Stanford, I participated actively in linguistic activities. When I arrived, it was only a program without an undergraduate major, but it has since developed into a full-fledged department with an undergraduate program. From the beginning, I was a member of the program and later a member of both anthropology and linguistics departments. Until my recent retirement, I owe an enormous debt of intellectual gratitude to my colleagues in linguistics who were helping him along and sending him stuff, right? In spite of this, I have always felt that I was an anthropologist whose specialty was linguistics rather than a linguist who happened to be an anthropologist. But the first thing that they want to throw at Jean-Claude Bowley is that he is not a degreed linguist. This man who has a master's in electrical engineering, which means he had to study mathematics, computer science, and physics. This man, y'all believe, is some Rudy Poot, but somebody coming in studying anthropology and history has more intellectual know-how than somebody who studies mathematics. Like, our people are just lost. Like Sheikh Anta Diop with some Rudy Poot, some guy who has 2 masters in chemistry, that he was just somehow intellectually incapable of knowing how to study language and linguistics. That somebody like an Asarimhotep, who's a mathematician and computer scientist, just makes up stuff off the whim to entertain, the random YouTube audience, the people who got time for 20-hour shows and talk about nothing. And this is the state that we're in today, because people don't want to study and think that you have to have degrees subject matters to speak intelligently on these things. So this is the sad state of affairs. Like, y'all don't even know the purpose of going to school. You get degrees so you learn how to study, so that you can learn how to be an autodidact. That's why they're able to jump fields like this. Why it's not a thing for somebody who has a BA in philosophy, I'm speaking of Diop now, 2 degrees in chemistry, and in a PhD in anthropology, can jump over into linguistics. Linguistics does not require a large hadron collider. I don't need to be in a lab to do historical comparative linguistics. All I need to know is how to interview people, how to translate sounds into script, how to read multiple dictionaries and grammars that have been created by other linguists, and to learn how to do the comparisons. It's just like you don't need a lab to learn mathematics. All you need is some pen and paper and a chalkboard. Linguistics is logic. It's quasi-mathematics. I don't need a space probe. I don't need to raise funds, hundreds of millions of dollars, to create some telescope or to launch a rocket into space. But people can't even do the basic. They can't even just purchase books and do the workout material that is in the books. You just need time and discipline, which a lot of people lack. You got anything to say, Ujama?
Boy, I had a lot. I just want to say that to kind of underscore the points made, that having a degree, the people that you mentioned, they don't have a degree in linguistics, but yet they are bona fide linguists and they're seen as such. And the logic, if someone is going to dismiss a person like Mboli for the reason of him not having a degree, a PhD in linguistics, then the same logic would have to apply to the others that you mentioned, which is from Christopher Eric, Greenberg, Blench, Obenga, and Diop, for not having a degree in linguistics. It's on the same playing field, because those people took courses in linguistics just as Mboli took courses in linguistics, advanced studies in linguistics, and Egyptology as well. And so the idea of summarily dismissing a person like Mboli and whoever else because they don't have an actual PhD or degree in linguistics would be to do so in error. And that's what I see in the conflict community being done by people who are not competent and are not capable of critiquing work themselves. And they're 100% dependent and rely upon experts because they themselves are impotent and incapable and unable to look at the work themselves and make any determination themselves. And so that position of lacking, that position of ignorance, that position of not being capable of doing it, it forces people to 100% depend on experts. That's why you see people champion experts. I deal with the experts. But what about you? What do you do? What can you do? And the answer is not a thing. That's why it's 100% dependency and reliance upon experts. And if an expert says the sky is red, that person in that position, because they're incapable of examining information themselves, because they haven't garnished the skill set to do so themselves, they have to accept what the expert says. And then they pass what the expert says on and their belief to others. And that becomes dangerous. That's not how scholarship does. It's not how science works, as said by Neil deGrasse Tyson in the video and the other video that you played. That's not how it works. And what I did want to say, though, when it comes to Emboli specifically and the conflict community, Emboli was introduced to the conflict community by asarimhotep. He wrote his book in 2010, and I have the book on the screen. Wrote it in 2010. Nobody knew about Emboli at all until Asar brought him to everyone's attention. So it's been from the book came out in 2010. Asar introduced him roughly around 2012. And Asar, you could correct me. Roughly around 2012. From 2012 until today, that's 12 years. That's 12 years. And Jean-Claude Emboli is a Facebook user, a very active Facebook user. Jean-Claude Emboli is approachable. He is actively engaging people on Facebook. He has agreed to do interviews with people on YouTube. You can search him on YouTube and you will see that he's been interviewed. Asar did about 3 interviews with him, and others have interviewed him. Now he speaks French, so a lot of the interviews are with French speakers and the French interviewers and so on. But my point is, Emboli has been front and center and approachable and available. And this is what's weird to me, is that at no time have the people that don't have the skill set to examine his work themselves, but rely on ghost sources or people like Clyde Winters, who did not read his book, but will acquiesce and champion what Clyde Winters says about Emboli. But these people themselves don't reach out to Emboli. They don't invite him for an interview. Not one time do they message Emboli, say, hey, I know you have a new book out, whatever the case is. I would like to interview you, and you can elaborate and explain what are the problems with the existing 4 language, macro language filer of African language that you have contention with, and whatever the case is. So this is not done. You don't see these people approaching Emboli or inviting them to do an interview in that regard. But yet they have so much to say about his work and even him. They don't know him, but they'll say like he's pseudo, but his work, and they've never checked out the work. They're not capable of even checking out the work. Even if they have the book, they're not going to understand anything in it for themselves. So because they're impotent in trying to make that assessment, so they have to rely on someone else. And the people that are being relied upon are not even, or have not even read his material. And so because he's a French speaker in the Francophone community of people, he is engaged on the continent of Africa. So just real quick, and I know I'm rambling on a bit, but I just want to show this right here, because people pretend or assume that Emboli is like the average Joe in the conflict community that just self-published a book and put it out there, because people are being very dismissive of the work. And so I'm showing this. This is a post from Emboli. So if y'all see his name, if you want to search for him on Facebook, you could do so under that name. But here Emboli has a post. This is from 2 years ago, where he is sitting with linguists, presenting his doing presentations with his peers, other linguists, professors at African schools in Benin and in other countries. He is an actual consultant, a linguistic consultant to these institutions of learning, along with him doing his engineering. This is him sitting with let's see, I can't even read the name. He said, I had a fruitful interview yesterday with the Honorable Ernest Mazidio, member of the Parliament of OBO, et cetera, et cetera. He's even on his profession as an engineer, he's meeting with these people to discuss things that impact the community. So on the engineering side, he is meeting with officials and high profile people. Then on the linguistic side, he's doing the same. He attends linguistic conferences. He attended one in Ghana, which I spoke about last night with that was Dr. Obadele Cambone was in attendance with. And so it's not like Mboli is publishing just any old thing and then hiding his hand. Mboli, being a bona fide scientist and engineer, he's publishing work in the spirit of science and welcoming the critique. He's showing up. He's pulling up on people. And anybody that engages him, he engages them, such as Cambone, such as Capo Chichi. There's Facebook posts where he's going back and forth with Capo Chichi, then he back out. Cambone backs out. So I'm saying all this to say is that for people to have the audacity who don't even know anything about the field of linguistics to discern anything themselves, for people like that to have the audacity to summarily dismiss Mboli's work as pseudo or what have you, to me is crazy. And it's really an anti-productive, anti-scientific behavior. You can't promote STEM, you can't promote scientific literacy, and you can't promote Africans to expand knowledge. But then when somebody does, you're not even qualified to judge the work, but you want to shoot that down and be very dismissive without even giving at least the respect of checking out the work. So the accusations of disrespecting or experts is actually in reverse. And this, for the life of me, is retarded. And the jig is up.
Yeah, and I'm seeing your commentary, Neil Spite, and you asked the question, do I think that the ancient Egyptians were black? You asked that the last time you came on, and we answered that question already. So if you're going to ask the same question again, I'm not answering. So let me know if you got a different question. We've answered that for you already. Anyway, but yeah, it's more anti-African because you notice they have no African or black scholars that they hold in high esteem, that they interview or not. And I know Garfield said that no, you know, the black scholars don't want nothing to do with what they're going. I don't believe that. I have getting high caliber, high quality black scholars on my program, and so they be in the community. As a matter of fact, this coming weekend, I'm interviewing a well-known African Egyptologist, you know, bona fide Egyptologist, right? And we're going to have a discussion on. Technically, he has the same last name, kind of, as Mboli, but it's Kiamboli, you know. But you know, and again, you know, be introducing these scholars. He's from the Francophone world, but he has works in it on and made into a book is in English, and he has a couple journal articles that are in English as well. But he also does write in French and in German, and so you know, this is the kind of, but I'm not going to ask him, about the word Kemet, because that's not his research question. If you would have done the literature review like all scholars are supposed to do, you'll know which scholars address the word Kemet in any fashion, right? And so again, hold on one sec. Dog, I'm not answering that question again. I answered your question. The answer is yes. What else do you want? And so look, I'm putting you on. Peace, brother Neil Spite. Ask me a question that you have not asked me before.
Okay, Asar.
Yes.
Come on, brother. Y'all got to stop doing that, assuming that we had a conversation in the past and my question is going to be pertaining to everything I want to talk about. So let's do that for first. Now, that was the question you said yes to. Okay, fine, brother. I did have
You
other
asked the
questions. No, I
question in
know
the
I had
private
other
chat. I'm
questions.
just responding
Oh,
to the
okay.
question that you have in the
Okay,
okay. Well,
I
you
got you.
said that's
Okay,
why I
okay.
said if you got other questions, because that question you asked
All
the
right.
last time you came on, I answered that
All right.
already.
My
So I'm
bad,
asking if you got
bro.
other questions to ask the other questions.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
want to ask you about any German scholars that's doing the work.
Any German scholars?
Yeah, of our people, like maybe like the guy you're speaking on out in Boli, like an African that speaks German and that's doing the work that we don't know of and we can't read his work being English speakers. It may be
Well,
phenomenal.
usually, unless I'm trying to see, because like most of the African scholars that I know that write in German, they mainly write in French. So like Theophilo Binga writes in German. Dr. Mubabinge Bololo writes in German. Kiamboli, as I spoke of earlier, writes in German. Dr. Kalamba and Sapo writes in German. But the
Okay.
majority of their work is in French.
Oh, okay, I
So
see.
some
Yeah.
of it may be just a German translation, or they may just have other original works that are in German. But
All right.
it usually, and this is not an exact, but if they're an African scholar and they're writing in German, 9 times out of 10 they mainly write in French as well.
I totally understand, and I appreciate all y'all
So
doing.
so I know all of those people I named.
Okay. Yes, sir.
We
Hey, I don't know why the phone is jumping off and on. We had a very choppy situation all day. All right, right now I just heard a little
Peace,
bit
can
of
you hear
you.
me? You there?
There you go. Now I hear you.
Oh, yeah.
It's jumpy. But anyway, peace to the panel. I'll talk to y'all soon.
Nurse. So that's why I'm always outside, so that it works better. But
Okay.
you were saying that you couldn't hear me?
Yeah, I couldn't. But peace to the panel. I'm just glad, you know what I'm saying, y'all doing the work. The little whatever you and Jonathan going through. I love both of y'all, brother. Y'all both doing y'all thing to me and Wujahu. I don't know where Ankh just jumped off the truck. I don't understand that. But he got his own right to his opinion too. All right. Hey, but peace to the family, man. Let me get out of here because it's jumping choppy.
Ben jumped off the truck. He jumped off the truck, off the bridge, in a boat, and then jumped off the boat too.
Come on, man.
Shots fired at Brother Hug. Much love to you, Brother Hug.
All right, family.
All right, no doubt. And again, this is the Mbongi, and this is an open forum, and I haven't been paying attention to the chat, so if y'all ask the question in the chat, I ain't see it. So you have to ask it again. So the link should be, I know I'm not watching the live, but it should, yeah. The link is pinned to the top for those of you who are watching from Twitter or X. You will have to come to YouTube to join the live if you plan on jumping on the forum. So let me see. Let me just jump up a little bit. Not seeing any questions. Everybody got jokes. Let me see. Was there anything that you wanted to hit, Brother Ujawu?
No, I just basically said that, it's the same running theme in what you're saying and then what I was saying yesterday and kind of been saying for years is, collectively we have to do better. I hope to see everybody win and everybody do better. And I think that people are missing the mark. And one of the driving points that I'm making and you're making is that when it comes to information, scholarly discourse, academia, and things like that, and this is if you are going to position yourself to argue and challenge or critique or make claims, you have to do it from a position of being informed. If you're not informed on a subject matter or an issue, whether it's very narrow and specific or broad, it doesn't matter. You have to be informed yourself if you yourself are going to start advocating and debating and arguing with people, be it on YouTube, face to face, blog talk, or what have you. That's the point. If you are not equipped with the competency level enough to do that, then you should sit it out. That's it. And what I'm saying does not mean that everybody has to become an expert in everything. It's just what I'm saying is that people are not acknowledging their own weaknesses. Because for me, if I am not competent in a certain subject, you're not going to see me on YouTube or anywhere else trying to argue about it. To me, that's retarded. That's very slow to do. That's just doesn't make any sense. And so it doesn't mean I have to become an expert in there, because I don't. If I don't have the time to gain competency in there, then guess what? I have to simply acknowledge that. I have to acknowledge my weakness. I am not competent enough in said subject, and I don't have time to study said subject. Therefore, I should not be on YouTube, in the YouTube streets with a bullhorn trying to argue said subject. I hope everybody gets that. Like people, you don't have to argue. Like, I understand content creation. I understand people want to make content and they want their channels lit up and popping. I get that. But when it comes to information, people got to take this serious. It's time to joke, time to play, time to entertain. But then when it comes to information, you have to know how to turn down those other things and deal with the information in a serious way. And so my point is that if you're not competent enough in any particular subject, you should not be grabbing a bullhorn on any platform to be trying to argue, fuss, and fight about it. That's backwards. And that's really what the bottom line is. So everybody talking about linguistic stuff, if you're not competent in it to make these determinations, then all you're going to have is an uninformed opinion that has really no value. And only if, me personally, only if I'm bored would I even listen to that for entertainment purposes. But it's not something serious. So that's where we have to, and I'm saying everybody has to elevate. And if you're going to argue, and that, like I said, I keep saying if you're going to argue about something, and that's it. So I'm gonna keep repeating myself, but I'm keep driving that point home. That's what it's about. Relying on expert. Hold up, one more thing. Deferring to experts is different, or deferring to experts and authority is different from appealing to experts and authority. To appeal to authority or an expert is a logical fallacy, but to defer to the experts and refer to experts is perfectly fine. People do it all the time. That is standard. But you can never use experts in a logical, fallacious way, because just because somebody is that you feel is an expert, and side note, experts don't need degrees. But if somebody's an expert in a field or if somebody is the degreed in the field, that in and of itself does not mean that person is right, number one, is perfect, number two, and three, can't make mistakes. You can have a degree and be 100% wrong in your assessment of something. And so if you don't have the competency enough to discern that yourself, but because they have a degree and in your mind that degree equals godship, then you are going to also succumb to those same mistakes. That should be clear to everybody. If an expert makes a mistake and all you can do is accept what an expert say, then guess what? You're going to be in the same bucket as the mistake. And in the bigger picture, what does that do? It doesn't advance anything. So there has to be a way to check it. And fine, if you can't learn the materials enough to check it yourself, then that's fine. But you should not be in that position and then try to argue about stuff because you don't know enough. That's the difference. If you can't check it and you have to accept it, fine. Do so and sit it out. Sit on the bench. Sit in the spectators. Sit in the bleachers and watch. Don't get on the court. Don't get on the court, grab the ball, and try to shoot because you're going to miss. Period. And that's it.
I want to welcome Kyle, your favorite noob, to the Mbongi. And I got to first say that this is an ice cold channel. Don't be coming here with that noob foolishness.
Man,
But
all
welcome
I'm
to
gonna
the
say
Mbongi.
all I'm gonna say is 1903. We can keep it pushing. But it's all love, man. But first and foremost, I want to shout y'all out for first and foremost being leaders in the STEM fields, especially in IT, because that's a field that I'm also involved in. So I have a certain amount of love and respect for anybody that's teaching people to get involved with that in those fields, right? And I was listening to you, and I did have a slight issue, but I hopped off just to be 100% transparent. My girl called me on lunch break, and but you were saying something about like not referring to ChatGPT, and I think that for the most part, Ujamaa kind of made that he cleared that up, but he cleared it up after I hopped on the panel. So I may be out of place for even asking this question. But
Right.
so are y'all saying for people not to use chat? Like, okay, let me back up for a second. So when Wuja was saying not to use Chat GPT, I mean to use Chat GPT or not, his theory was, or his statement was, don't use it to refute the experts, right? For the most part. But when we have people who are non-experts in the conscious community that want to engage in these conversations at a fundamental level, I think that Chat GPT would be, or Wikipedia, those type of resources would be a good rebuttal to give them that foundational understanding that they need to progress and even have a deeper dialogue, because a lot of times people are so flawed in their methodology and their understanding that they need basic information. And if y'all already covered that, I apologize again. As I said, I was going for about 30 minutes. You know how the cake can go. You got to cake a little bit to get the to make it happy home.
Already.
But I was just making sure that we weren't saying for people not to use these tools, because these tools are amazing tools, and I don't want people to walk away from this saying that we should not use technology for our benefit, because that's one of the best things that we have in our favor is the availability of resources and sources of information to educate ourselves outside of those institutions that charge us $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 to just get educated.
I want to quickly.
No. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now, I just want to just clarify my position that you mentioned, KI. As I said last night, that I personally use ChatGPT. I've been using it since its beta version. You know, when they were soliciting people to come in before it was even widely public. So as I said last night, ChatGPT is an amazing tool, like you said, and is good at a list of things, but it also has its weaknesses in a list of things. And so my point was that people, if you're going to use any tool, ChatGPT or any other tool, you definitely need to be aware of its strengths and weaknesses, what it can do and what it can't do, so that people don't have false expectations when they use it and thinking it's doing something when it's not. So that was my whole point. And when it comes to like, and I showed an example, and Asar showed it again today on how people are trying to use it when it comes to scholarship. And the case study or the example used by Asar and me yesterday was Mboli. When you use ChatGPT in reference to Mboli, it's pulling non-existent sources. It's pulling sources that existed before even Mboli published anything, and then the one source that it did pull up was Clyde Winters, who himself never even read Mboli's book. So if you don't know that those weaknesses exist, or ChatGPT could do that, then it could become a problem when you use it and then you grab a bullhorn and go on the YouTube streets and try to argue. And that's where I take issue is people trying to argue in public and advocate something that they're not competent in, and then misuse these tools. So that was it.
Okay, yeah. Now, what you just said, I have no disagreement with. I think that Chat GPT in its current stage that we use AI with is a precursor for deeper understanding. So these are the things, just like Wikipedia, it doesn't give you the in-depth understanding that those actual articles and reports and different books will give you the full detail, but it does give you a blanket understanding of certain topics. So when you're using it, when a person is using it to argue a deeply intricate topic, that could be problematic. I completely agree with y'all on that. So I digress. Yeah, but I just want to make sure we were telling people not to use Chat GPT as if AI was some type of bad or misinformation based resource for them. But it's only as intelligent as the person that's asking the question.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to kind of piggyback on. So no, we're not saying not to use ChatGPT, but what we're responding to is certain individuals in this community who are trying to use ChatGPT as an expert. And you and I and Rujawu know that computers are dumb. Computers aren't experts. Computers don't research anything. It responds to inputs. It doesn't think on its own. And this is why we have, the artificial intelligence movement going strong. It's been strong for a while, but here comes more fire, folks. Hold on one second. As you hear, it's still going on.
Man, you must live in a natural disaster area because there'd be so many fire trucks passing.
So
I don't know who can't cook or something. They like always something. I could say this though, that people can't drive out here, so it may be always like accidents and things of that nature. I could say that, but yeah. So and I'm far from the inner city at the moment, so this isn't like if I was back in West Philly on 52nd Street. Oh, it'd have been if it wasn't the sirens, it would just be loud black folks that you would hear fighting in the middle of the street.
Damn.
But that's another conversation for another time. But but what I was saying is that they're trying to use ChatGPT as an expert, and it is not an expert because it has not done its own research. It's a large language model. And I don't think people really understand what a large language model is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and just simple Google search, right, to help folks to understand. So let me know if Y'all
Yeah,
can see
it's
that,
up. It's up.
right? So let me increase the size a little bit better. And so it's saying, so a large language model is a type of artificial intelligence program that uses machine learning to generate and recognize text and other content. Large language models are trained on large amounts of data, such as books, online text, and transcripts, to understand natural language. They can, and so you hear what it says, to understand natural language. That's what it's doing. They can then perform a variety of tasks, including text generation. So if you ask it a prompt, based upon what it was fed, it can summarize it and spit it back to you in a way that a human can understand, right? So it's responding to input prompts. Summarization, like just what I said, summarizing text. Question answering questions. So for those of us who build web applications, you want to be able to use an AI to respond to common questions, based upon a data set or a database that includes the entire website, right? And or policy information, right? Math problem solving. Computers have always been good at being able to solve math problems quickly. There's some things that ChatGPT can't address in terms of mathematics, but that's another conversation. And of course, writing code and helping developers find errors and security issues, and of course translating text. So when I'm translating stuff from German, I may use ChatGPT because I don't speak German like that, right? I picked up a few things, but German is not my language, so I'll use a ChatGPT for German, right? And so just goes on to say is LLMs are built on a transformer model, which are types of neural networks. I spoke about neural networks earlier that consist of an encoder and a decoder with the self-attention capabilities. This may be getting too technical at this point. They're using many fields like healthcare, software development, right? So like, for example, in healthcare, you would use it in the sense that, say that you would input a number of symptoms. The large language model will search its data set and then propose known remedies or processes or procedures based upon the inputs that it was given in terms of your symptoms. So you may put in a combination because it how should I say it because I can't say really a database because they don't work off of databases in the same way that traditional like websites will work on a database, because it has to be able to continue to learn. And so that's where the whole so really kind of storing data in nodes and being able to combine some things together and to produce an output. This is why like you can ask
I don't know if it's my phone or if
and
it's
then the
here.
next time you ask it the same question, it'll give you a different answer.
Yeah,
Am I?
I completely understand that, and well, I mean, hopefully the chat does as well. So with AI though, we know we have three particular stages to the AI intelligence, and my fear is that saying certain things is going to push people away from gravitating toward those next steps. Because right now, I think we're in AGI for the most part with like Chat GPT and Bard and Claude and stuff like that, which is like the large language models that you're referring to, which is simply a model that goes off of information that has been inputted based on the responses. But that model in itself is also a learning model. That learning model helps the artificial intelligence get to its next step. So the more that we use these different AI platforms and models, the more it's going to learn how to properly respond to certain questions. And so my thing is, I don't want people to stop using it from this particular community because it's going to have a limited data set when it comes to responses in the future. And so I don't know if do that make sense what I'm saying? Like, because if we push people away from using ChatGPT in our community, it's not going to know how to properly respond to the questions that we ask it in the future. Because in those 3 steps, it's just like college. You got bachelor's, master's, and then your doctorate level. And that last model, artificial super intelligence, that's when AI will be able to formulate its own conclusions and also make predictions based on information that it has gathered. And so when that information is not being gathered from a particular community, its responses will be limited to the information or the questions that was asked to it or the data sets that's been present based on how we are limiting it. You know, the limit of ChatGPT is us because it's a responsive model. And if we disengage from it in this particular community, then we're not going to get the appropriate responses that are necessary to push us forward, and give us the ability to use it effectively in the future. I guess that's the pretty much the concern that I have is that if we're not going to use it, it's not going to represent our questions and our fears and our hopes and all these things from this particular community.
I hear that, and you know, it just goes to show like ChatGPT is going to have a different purpose depending on the end user. And so if you are a general person, right, like you just want some quick information, ChatGPT is fine. If you are a researcher and you want some general information, ChatGPT is fine. It should only be used as a stepping stone for further research so that you can get a good summary analysis of what's going on, and then you can ask it questions to lead you to source material for you to analyze yourself.
I can agree 100% with that.
And so that's why I'm saying like but people are trying to use it as it itself is an expert. It's not an expert because it can't discern. Like I remember one time I asked ChatGPT about Ma'at in Africa, and it tried to make the argument that Ma'at only exists. Hold on one second again. Damn fire truck. And so it said that Ma'at only exists in ancient Egypt and doesn't exist in sub-Saharan Africa. And then I asked it to conduct a comparative historical linguistic analysis using these particular languages to find cognates for Ma'at. And it couldn't do it because it's not trained to do historical comparative linguistics. It can't research on its own and come to a conclusion. And so maybe in the future it can. But at this moment, it's not able to handle that. So it can't judge. So if you was and you can't even really cite ChatGPT, right? Like as a source.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
You know,
So I'm with you on that. Now, is it plausible that the reason why ChatGPT couldn't find a cognate of Ma'at in West Africa because it doesn't exist? Is that plausible?
No, it is not plausible because I've already done it. Like I'm testing it to see if it has the capability to verify information. Like in linguistics, this is why I say it's quasi mathematics, because a mathematician can look at an equation and look how it is done in terms of if the mathematician had wrote out all his steps. We can go through the entire proof and verify if it's legit or not. Right. And you can do that with linguistics. It's not something that you have to necessarily go and find an expert on. You can look at their analysis and see. And so and then there's a process that you can do because what you need is the actual methodology. So if I was to take the same methodology and apply it to languages, for example, that you did not use, right? So this is where, like, even in computer science, when we're doing machine learning, there's supervised and unsupervised learning, right? So the supervised learning is that we know the outcomes that we want, and then we feed information into the computer and have it do an analysis, and then we measure using statistics to see if the outcomes are within a reasonable statistical yield. And then we have the unsupervised learning aspect of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to apply that algorithm that we created for the machine learning process on data for which we did not feed to the model, and to see if it can produce similar results and accurate results as it did with the trained or the
Uh,
supervised modeling, right?
you know,
So in
I think I
linguistics, we do
understand.
the same thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think I understand the issue. So like we understand that ChatGPT is based on is database, right? We all get that, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
information is not into that database, it cannot make an accurate assessment on that information. But a lot of people may not understand that. And so if you say I've never seen it, but if you have seen it, that's great. You know what I'm saying? But if that information about my being in West Africa is readily available, it may not be uploaded into the Chat GTP database because it may not be able to find it readily. And so
Exactly.
it can't answer that question, you know.
And
But
that's why the other issues on top of that, because remember that computers are dumb, and that's why we have to instruct it for the most do all the tasks that it is able to do. It can do the tasks more efficiently, but it cannot think for itself, right? It cannot analyze for itself. It can only make calculations,
as of
right?
now,
And
yeah, as of
and
now,
as
we'll
of
say
now, right?
that.
Maybe but we don't want it to become sentient. That's what the Matrix was trying to warn us about.
But that's
And
that's the
Terminator. You
next
know what I'm
stage
saying?
though. Sorry, we gotta be willing to go to the next stage because that's the next stage because it's like I said, it's 3 tiers of
Uh-huh.
artificial intelligence. Right now we're on the first tier and we're moving toward the second tier. This is what the upgrades to Chat GPT and Claude, all those things are doing. They're
Mm-hmm.
making those things become teachers of a particular field instead of just responding and having functional knowledge. But eventually, in the next 5 years, well, according to what I've read, that those same databases would be able to have so much information that now it can make predictions about things in the future that we as humans we can't process that amount of data, especially as fast as ChatGPT can
Yeah,
to make those accurate assessments. So eventually, it's gonna get there. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
May I just add something?
Go ahead.
First and foremost, peace and blessings to everyone. So yeah, very interesting conversation. Um,
And
and
this
what I
is
wanted to,
brother Chilimbwe who's
yeah,
speaking right now. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Welcome to the Mbongo.
appreciate it, brother, appreciate it. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that there has been like a lot of, what should I say, reactions to the rolling out of the likes of OpenAI. For instance, the other day they were talking about just the nature of, the direction that ChatGPT is going in terms of enhancing the features, right? What you are able to do, because you have DALI, you have, you know, um, things like Sora, which is a whole different, what I'm saying, discussion in terms of when they rolled Sora out, people were talking about what that might do to, the movie industry and things of that nature. So I think that in general, what we're seeing is people not really understanding, for instance, like what transformer neural networks actually are, and how it works in the larger context. So, personally, how I've used ChatGPT, it has been very handy when it comes to just like, because as a machine learning student, um, I personally think that ChatGPT is very, very, very valuable. So I agree with brother Kayal. If I hope I didn't butcher your name, brother. That we definitely can't like have the idea and understanding that this is something we shouldn't use just because we might not understand it. And on the other hand, what Asar and brother Wuja was adding to this is the importance of you know having the scientific approach to these things and understanding that this is actually a computer you're dealing with, right? So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate. I think all of us here on the panel right now are in 100% agreement. And I hope that our agreement is translating over to the chat. Everybody watching us as well, because I would hope that nobody will misconstrue what we're saying and just agree. I don't see how anybody could disagree with that. Again, ChatGPT is a very valuable and amazing tool. It's definitely made a lot of people a lot of money, because how I deal with it and what I do professionally. I've seen it. I've seen the value of it. Especially in marketing, advertising, and things like that, with product acquisition and promotions and things like that. So the underlying the whole point is, can probably be summed up as garbage, as it stands right now. It could be summed up as garbage in, garbage out. If you so which means it's all about the user. And I think Kyle, you said it, is it where the limitation. So if and this is what happens if you're limited, but then you're going to use ChatGPT as a tool, it's just going to enhance your limitations. Like it's going to put your limitations on steroids. But if you're excellent at something and you use ChatGPT as a tool, then it's going to enhance your excellence. So it's like an enhancer, because it's more efficient at calculating and summarizing and processing. So it's just going to enhance where you already are. And I think that if we say it like that, maybe people will get it better. It's up to you, your level. So if we on a scale from 1 to 10, and you're at 3, Chat GPT is going to make that 3 a real big 3. But people are going to think that Chat GPT is going to make them a 10, but no, it's just going to make your 3 bigger.
Yeah, I agree with that
If
100%.
if people can understand my analogy, that's really what it is. It's not going to make you from 1 to 10. 1 to 10,
Yeah.
you got to do that work. So that,
Yeah,
I
if you
guess.
ask a dumbass question, you're gonna get a dumbass response.
I'm just going on the record that I believe that all y'all on this panel is just trying to usher in Skynet. So
Man,
that
I work for Skynet, man. They pay my salary, man.
that's why y'all try to promote Chat GPT, to seem innocent at first. And then
Yeah.
when it decides that human beings are the logic, or destroying human beings is the logical outcome of an analysis on saving the world, then y'all gonna feel different. Y'all gonna remember this conversation. So
Yeah.
yeah, Skynet.
So yeah, but that's the concern though too. Now when growing up, I don't know how old everybody is on the panel, but I know when the internet first touched down and first became available, um, everybody just jumped on. It was wow, amazing. But then you had another sector of the community, society, that looked at it cautiously and had conspiracy theories about it, you know, and things like that. And so, but here we are in 2024. The internet's been on and popping ever since, what, 1992 or whatever. Um, but it comes with baggage, that you have to figure out. And so AI and this movement is relatively new, to the public as far as widespread. And so it's gonna come with the same. Hold on, here, echo. Is that me? Oh,
No, I think
yeah.
somebody just came in with those unmuted.
Okay, no, I was just
I
saying.
just muted him. But
Okay,
go ahead.
so I'm just saying the AI movement is relatively new, so it's expected to go through its bumps and bruises, even in the perception of the public, and the misuse of it and the good use of it. So we're going to get it all. We're going to get it all. And I guess my points, one of the points I'm making about it is, and I only made this point because after me taking a long hiatus from all of this and coming back and seeing it, I was just shocked to see how people are using it. Like they're weaponizing it, and I noticed that they're using it improperly, like in a limited way. And I'm just speaking up about it, and that's it. It's not, and it's where I'm speaking about it. People should be like, oh, okay, let me look into that. Oh yeah, let's like it should be a thing like let's all do better. So if I'm raising a point about it, then it's like, okay, well, what's your concern? What's your point? And how can we do better? But instead, what the conflict community tends to do, that's why I call it conflict community, everybody gets like, it's a very adversarial defensive environment. As soon as you say something, the immediate response is to defend by all means necessary, even if I got to make up something. Instead of, okay, we're all in this together. Let's all walk together. How can we all win? How can we all improve? It's, people set tripping and got to be forced to choose sides. And I don't think that that's very productive. So, and that's the only reason why I'm bringing ChatGPT up, or I brought ChatGPT up, because I've seen videos where people are misusing it or using it in a limited way, but may not know that they're doing so. Like the example, how you going to use it to research somebody like Emboli and then stop? Because I saw in the chat where people say, nah, you gotta ask it more questions, stuff like that. True, that's very true, and we know that. Anybody that knows about it will know that. But that's not how it actually is being used in the videos I've seen. I've seen people prompt it. It spits out an answer, and then and then it stops. Like they didn't further prompt it, to dig deeper and to verify and check anything. No, people I've seen it, and I should take clips. That's what I'm gonna start doing. I'm gonna start clipping up people's videos where they're doing what I'm saying, so people can't say I'm act like I'm making this stuff up. I've seen it.
And you know what?
Yeah,
What you can
and
do is
also the fact that
maybe upload the like for instance, if you're talking about Mboli, maybe upload his book or his research papers into because in Chat GPT 4 and I know in Claude and Bard, you can upload a paper and then you can ask Chat GPT for a academic response based on what you've uploaded. So it'll actually compare and contrast the paper or the article that you post based on the standard of academia, and it will give you those responses as well. So like maybe that's something that we should start doing, because like we got to start becoming masters of the tools that are available to us.
Yeah,
But
and
that's
and
the
that
issue is
requires
going to
us to
be that
have.
that ChatGPT has to learn how to do historical comparative linguistics. It can provide you commentary on uh on certain subjects, but it can't do the analysis itself. And I'll show you why in a little bit. But before we bring on our good brother Musoni in, I just want to read or just introduce this particular article. So this is a brand new article. So it's 2024, relatively new, I should say. It is titled "Revealing the Dark Side: The Top 6 Problems with the ChatGPT and Generative AI in 2024." Right, and so this is Forbes magazine. Right, so I'm just going to just go through the titles itself. I won't read anything. I mean everything for you to research on your own later. So it talks about accuracy. Right, we've all heard about ChatGPT's hallucination problem. Large language models are designed to serve probabilistic answers from training data and can be a little too eager to provide answers rather than saying, I don't know. They are known to make stuff up, unleashing a Pandora's box worth of problems, from brand damage to regulatory breach, right? And we've already shown that live on both of our channels, Ujamaa and I. That it just makes stuff up. You can't rely on ChatGPT to use it as an expert, right? So that there's an accuracy problem. Then there's the bias problem. So notice that, you know, it couldn't pull up anything because it's not researching, it's not being inputted works from African scholars. That's because human beings are behind ChatGPT, and that is feeding the information and regulating what is accepted as data or not. So if they automatically, if there's a cultural bias against African people and African scholarship, certain African scholarships not going to be included in the data set from which the AI is trained. So it's saying the problem of bias creeping into AI is old news, right? But the rapid proliferation of generative AI has amplified this concern more than most people thought was possible. Now, instead of worrying about a little bias sneaking in here and there, enterprise leaders must worry about it taking over their corporate cultures entirely. Right? Like, bias is a serious thing. So you got to understand these things. So we're not saying you can't use ChatGPT. We're just showing you what everybody who deals with this technology has come to understand by using it in a very rigorous way. So I'm just going to keep down volume. We were already drowning in information because before it became so easy to create new content with generative AI. Emails, ebooks, web pages, social media posts, and other created works. Even the volume of job applications has jumped, fueled by the ability to quickly generate customized resumes and cover letters with AI. Managing their sheer volume of all this information is hard. So, you know, that's, if you ever tried to apply for a job recently, you know, everybody's, see, there, I should step back. There becomes a point where the snake starts eating its own tail, and it's feeding off of the information. So AI generated information is now feeding into AI to be re-spit out into the public. And so this increases the volume of information, and everything is starting to sound and look alike. That's why, like, if you're doing all of those AI generated images, like, you can almost tell it's a AI generated image because it all looks the same. Because again, computers are not creative. They're not human beings. They're very limited in what they can do in terms of their initial creativity. And so now it's feeding off of its own information that it's putting out of there when it's trying to reference stuff to make more artificial intelligent art pieces, right? So the volume is an issue. Cybersecurity, don't have to go into that. We should know that. Intellectual property issues, right? Shadow AI, read this one. According to a Salesforce survey of 14,000 workers across 14 countries, half of those corporate employees who use generative AI tools do so without sanctioned approval of their organizations. It's not going to be possible to put the genie back in the bottle on this one, so you'd best work out your generative AI governance policies and establish programs to teach staff what responsible use looks like. And like currently right now, like I'm also a teacher's assistant, and like when I have to grade certain papers, you know, you could just tell when somebody has an AI response, you know, saying to the prompt given by the teacher.
Yeah, I don't like that one. I'm sorry, I don't like that, man. I use that every day, man. I do that.
Look,
man.
look, I understand it's helpful, but when you have to articulate, see, part of the educational process is not just knowing information, is being able to communicate that information in an effective way. So, you know, unless you are doing a job where you don't have to write any papers, you don't have to write any proposals, because at the end of the day, there's no economy without human beings. And so you have to be able to communicate with all different types of human beings from all different types of backgrounds. And so you got to learn how to communicate that which you have read. And so if you're not reading the information, then you aren't digesting and analyzing, which means that you lose value as a employee, as a person, because you don't know how to produce the knowledge that is necessary to solve certain people's problems, because you're just trying to get a grade.
Let me rebut that for a second, because I actually use this. What I do for a living, I make databases, right? So I use SQL databases, right? And I do billing.
I mean, you already at work. I'm talking about in class.
Oh, okay. All right, I got you.
How do I know that you know?
Yeah, I've had
you get
to
what I'm saying?
proven my proficiency to get the job. So
yeah,
I'm
I mean, of course you can use it on the job. That's what they're trying to get AI efficient enough that they can replace you, right? Like I just saw a TikTok video earlier of some robots that are like semi drones. They're still attached to a device by a cord, but they fly up. They have little fans, or they have little fans that keep them afloat, that are picking fruit off of the trees. So even the lowly migrant worker, farm worker, is being
but so
by AI.
The idea
I
of the
agree with you on
technocracy,
that.
huh?
I had posted an article in a few of the back chats that I'm associated with on Facebook, which is non sequitur, but so it says in the next, it said 5 years. This is probably like a year and a half ago, so probably in the next 3 years, that 30% of the job force will be replaced by AI. And so, me personally, I think that we need to take instead of a reactive response, a proactive response to get into these different fields, so that now instead of being unemployed, we can become the prompters. We can become the virtual network engineers. We can
But ChatGPT is learning how to prompt itself.
May I just add something, Asar? You might have to do an entire own show about possibly explaining how AI has actually been around for much longer than we are actually aware of. And it's
Indeed.
fundamentally talking about the use, it's everyday use, the most basic ways.
Yeah, I don't see it going. But then again, like I have a political issue with generative AI. And, the scientist in me is intrigued. Of course, I love exploration. I love math. I love technology. But the political person in me and the historian and the Africana studies person has a few questions, because now we're let's jump off of AI for a second and see how this relates to capitalism, because capitalism is born out of chattel slavery. Capitalism can't exist without slavery. And so because indigenous folks and African folks have been fighting for their freedom and wages and health care and all this other kind of stuff, this is cutting into the profits of these large corporations. And so they're trying to keep everything at slavery. That's why you get paid their damn near slave wages, and why they don't want to increase wages and for a living standard and all this, because in order for them to make a profit, you have to be getting paid almost nothing. And so this allows them to bring slavery back, just not with human beings. So it's like the car, the automatic vehicle, I mean the automobile replaced the horse. Now horses are just running around on a farm, gallop you, and now they're just circus acts in racehorses in modern times, right?
Yeah, but
And this is the plan that they have for human beings that aren't in a particular class. So there's a political class issue that has to be discussed alongside, outside of just using ChatGPT to win a YouTube argument, right? Like,
yeah, see, I get what you're saying. I understand you. I heard you. I hear you. I get that. With a political argument, for me myself personally, I'm all with capitalism because capitalism is the one thing that helps us that could help us out. I'll say to liberate ourselves independently as far as our households, and that independent liberation actually then trickles back into the community. So if you got one person that starts his own business because he's aware of ChatGPT or AI or just IT just in general, he could actually bring that money back to his household, and that's the easiest way. It doesn't have any boundaries on it. Understanding AI
but that's
and
assuming that's assuming that the public has money, because AI that took all the jobs and there's nothing for them to do, even the medial jobs. And then you ain't going to be saying all that until AI decides to become a noob and
Yo,
pledge.
look, bro. Look,
yo,
bro. As long as we're comfortable running around here posting pictures of riding around in Elon Musk's Cybertruck, you feel me? Like if that is the epitome, I don't know, man. I just feel like it's important
Look,
that we
I'm,
start taking ourselves seriously
I'm not
because
buying any automated car unless I can buy it cash. Because if I miss a payment or two, Elon Musk could call the car back, and I don't want any of that. That's what
right.
It's that's what I'm afraid of. But it's more. It's even deeper than that, because now when you're starting to get into, like, they're trying to get rid of paper paper money and coins, so where it's all digital. And then it's all being controlled by a group of people who have no problem committing genocide, uh enforcing slavery, doing everything in their power to suppress people. And if you get labeled, for example, a black uh identity extremist, they can just log into a computer and shut all your funds, your access to your funds. And since there's no more cash in the future, you can't even rely on a stash of cash because nobody's going to accept it.
well,
And if you don't, they're using, like there's certain places where AI is being used to discuss or to assess the probability, because it's all, as we read earlier, it's a probabilistic model. And what is the
Nah, but
probability that
what you're
you're
saying
going to
is very real.
be a this and that, you know, and they affect your life based upon these probabilistic calculations. Like,
I,
there's so many ways for it to go wrong. I understand what you're saying, and I'm
I
just
think
saying
that
that this has to be considered in the conversation as well.
I think that
Now,
it definitely should be considered, Asar. But I think that we shouldn't shy away from it, because we should be on the forefront of these changes that's happening in our society, because we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive. And the people that are proactive historically are the people who have the resources. And so if there's fear in our community that's being pushed, and it creates a hesitancy of people to get involved in these fields, instead of pushing people to take over these fields. Look at, like, for me, I believe that capitalism again is going to be our way out, because we most people are not fully vested into capitalism. And then we all get fully vested into capitalism, that capitalism becomes socialism, because that the resources that we're getting then comes back to our community. It then produces the infrastructure that we desire. It produces the increase of policing. It increases the infrastructure. It increases the value of our homes because now we can do the expansion to
You're
our
too
homes.
far behind in the game, because
Okay.
capitalism doesn't work by itself, which is why you have social programs. Because if you leave capitalism to capitalism, people are going to cheat. They're going to do every which a thing to make sure that the undesirables, aka you black Negroes, don't get anything. And there is only reinforced by a strong military, for which black folks don't have. You know, and regardless if you're in the fruit of Islam, you're a Hebrew Israelite, and you can fight, you got a couple of guns, you don't produce these things. Like, you know,
Nah, but that's very real. Because the
and
whole thing they're talking about right now, if you look at a company like Nvidia, right?
mhm.
This whole thing about semiconductors, right? Because that's a real conversation in terms of understanding that Elon Musk, if you understand who that man is and you're comfortable, you know what I'm saying, with the Cybertruck and that whole thing, it's like I get it. It's a trend, it's a thing where it's like, but we have to understand what this really entails in terms of just like as a community trying to gauge where are we 100 years from now, because in terms of what Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos got planned in terms of what they're looking into in terms of let Starlink, for instance. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with what Elon is doing in terms of that whole thing with Starlink. You know what I'm saying? That's where we need to look into those spaces as well as a community and understanding the importance of that, right?
Now, again, this is why, like I'm
just saying I'm
learning.
back.
I'm
I
one of
stepped
those.
away. I'm back. Just letting y'all know I'm back. I stepped away, so I missed everything. So I'm just gonna be quiet and plug myself back in.
No problem. Now, what I was saying is that this is why I study this stuff. So I'm one of those individuals. I agree with you, which is why I got into artificial intelligence, and why I'm continuing my education along those lines, because you need. See, our problem is we don't have enough people with multiple disciplinary education to get involved in such things, right? Because it requires so much time. Like, you know, you need somebody who's very Afrocentric, business savvy, has the capital, and is tech savvy to create the kinds of institutions and infrastructures that the black community needs, right? And it's not enough of us who are involved in these things, and which is why I love language and linguistics and talk about ancient Egypt and stuff. But anybody who knows that that's not my priority thing. I'm a technologist, and I use this in my studies of technology, right? And the whole Egyptology thing is something that I do along the lines. I'm trying to understand the nature of African cultures, African history, so I know how to use modern information and technologies to serve us within the capacity of that history. Right? What are the problems I'm going to run into trying to introduce something to a native, you know, a Khoi person versus somebody in Jamaica versus somebody in rural Kenya, right? What are the inherent problems preventing us from creating a United States of Africa? And I see Musoni is back. And things of that nature. You know, how is, you know, any ideas of technology building and energy creation going to affect the environment, and how is that going to affect the social and political relationships on the ground with the people? What is the issue of global warming doing in Chad with the reduction of the width of Lake Chad, right? And the resources dwindling. What wars and political issues are starting there? How is that going to affect us when trying to create, for example, United States of Africa? You know, like with the Tutsis and the Hutu and the problems that happen there, and how some groups out of that following into the Congo and causing problems in the Congo now, right? How in South Africa now they have elected a European who wants to create uh essentially a state for white folks like they did in Israel. And maybe Brother Musoni can speak more on that, because this is fresh news, right? Like, these are the kinds of things that I'm interested in. And all of this study that I do is in preparation for those kinds of engagements. And which is why I don't have time to argue with folks on YouTube about Afro-Asiatic and stuff that they don't know about and haven't read it, right? And so, you know, I'm not one of those individuals. I study this for a living. I grade papers and stuff on this, right? So it's this is what I want to bring to folks and expand our conversation, so that, you know, especially like when you come on the Mbongi, we're not simply just talking about language, you know, finding a cognate in this language, in that language, but to get people language minded, so that now I can start introducing mathematics. Because if you understand language and how to learn language and how languages work, you can better understand mathematics, because mathematics is a language, just like, you know, Python is a language, code fusion and stuff to that nature.
Hey, sorry, quick question. Like,
Go ahead.
so I know you say you do like PA work and professor's assistant work, and you grade papers or whatever. Like, are you grading papers in like Afro-Asiatic languages, or is it more like
No, this is
IT?
all computer science stuff right now.
Oh, okay, no, that's
So,
dope though. Like, so like maybe I think that it would be great, because I tried it before on Dagger Squad when I was, you know, over there, and I think it would be great to give people like the steps that they need to get to that field, because the disparity is ridiculous. Like, I work for a global company, multinational company, right?
uh-huh.
I am the only black person. Like, when I say black, I use that term loosely. I know y'all don't want to run with that.
No, I run
I'm
with
scared.
that. I have no problems with
I'm
black.
scared to
That's what
say I'm black now
Jawu and
around
Uncle
this
them.
one.
They don't like black.
But like African American person, right? That works in my entire company on that level, and like if we could maybe give people the blueprint that we use to get into that field, I think that would be very, very helpful, because like a lot of people hit me up all the time, you know, and they want to get into the field or trying to get into that field, and your expertise or your abundance of knowledge would be greatly appreciated, you know. And I think that we could. Now, I'm not saying that the stuff on Kim is not necessarily important. That's not what I'm saying. It is. But I think that also there is a certain amount of importance that we need to push into the community about practical skills that can change people's life directly, as well. And I know Umoja, he does IT, and I'm not sure about Marcus, but like we all really
Can I
are.
just add something to that?
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. And the last time I spoke on this channel, I told Asar that it's actually this channel that has been very instrumental in terms of my own personal endeavors in pursuing machine learning. So as a machine learning student, understanding how fundamental linguistics is as far as natural language processing goes, it's mind blowing. And I think that it just goes to show how, even understanding what AI actually really is, and how Asar explained that it's a concept that's being marketed, so it confuses the masses in a way that, personally, I believe it's going to take time before people digest, its real potential. And I think that there are aspects of this that are very, very problematic, which Asar, mentions. On the other hand, I am, enthusiastic about, you know, the potential that lies behind this, specifically as it pertains to our own community. And, you know, which is why it's important that we have voices and channels like this where we have these kinds of conversations where, bright minds come together and, what I'm saying, bring insight into topics that are obviously very important. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to add.
Indeed. I want to bring on Musoni. He's been patient. Peace and blessings, good brother, and welcome back to the Mbongi.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you for welcoming me back to the channel. Yeah, I was cut off my internet. I think AI was detected that I'm listening to terrorists who hate AI. Yeah, so yeah, basically I
Which
think
stands for asarimhotep, by the way. They stole AI from me.
Man, I'm
And
gonna
tried to
log
change it.
off. I'm
But
about
go
to
ahead.
log off right now.
yeah, so I think the attitude that people have towards AI should be basically related to any attitude they had with any technology before that. I think about with this discussion, I always think about my mother, my old school mother. She was a former teacher. She's in her 70s now. She never fully relied on a calculator. If she used a calculator, she would verify the calculation in the back of her head. So because technology is technology, and she grew up doing mathematics and multiplications, yeah, manually and all that. Yeah. So I think, and even when you go into the Chat GPT, that chat on the app. When you go on the app, it basically it has a disclaimer that it gives inaccurate information. It says ChatGPT can be inaccurate. ChatGPT may provide inaccurate information about people, places, or facts. So I think when people are using it, they skip that part. Yeah. All right. So and in relation, I actually have a question. Just need your personal input, Brother Asa, about something. But before I go into that, I just want to touch on what you spoke about, the elections in South Africa. So they just finished counting the votes since we voted a few days ago. And so the outcome in terms of the previous results is that the ANC, which has been the governing party for since 1994, since the end of apartheid. So they've enjoyed like a majority rule throughout the entire period, so for over 3 decades. And for the very first time, they've lost quite substantially. I mean, we're looking at from 57% to 40%. So no one has performed that badly since in any elections, actually. So the political party that you mentioned with a white leader, that's called the Democratic Alliance. They've been in politics since the days of apartheid. They they were an opposition party to the National Party, which was the apartheid regime at the time. So when post 1994, they rebranded themselves and called themselves from a Democratic Party to Democratic Alliance. So ever since then, they've been basically using black faces to try and get black people to vote for them. And at one point, they had a black guy as president of the party, but our people didn't trust him because of he's married to a white woman, and when he speaks, it sounds like the people who went to private schools and whatnot. So those kind of things, the people couldn't really connect to him. And like most of the black people that were members of that political party, he was this, they dumped him at some point. He's not the only one. So quite a few black leaders, and they ended up getting dumped. And one of the prominent leaders of that political party is a woman. And she has been very vocal in terms of promoting or being an apologist for colonialism. She's been doing that quite actively, especially on Twitter, arguing with people just on Twitter and claiming that colonialism benefited us at various levels and whatnot. So she's been the strongest, the most vocal around that. And so, but these guys this time around, they performed better than they did in the previous election. But it's not that they've done as great as the previous or what's this? The difference in performance was that great. It's about 2% improvement. But what makes their position look better now is that the ANC has lost so much of the votes that now they require some of your second, third position, fourth position political parties to come to the table regarding coalitions and whatnot. And Jacob Zuma, a former president of the country, he's from the province KwaZulu Natal, which is predominantly Zulu, obviously. It's the biggest population. As you know, Zulu people are the biggest population in the country. So he's had great support amongst the Zulu people. So that political party took the biggest chunk of the ANC's voters. And but the funny thing, he's still a member of the ANC, but opened another political party on the side. So so those are the politics. But that the specific political party, Democratic Alliance, are not very active on the issue of making Cape Town independent. There is another political party that has that ambition. I think that ambition is based on there is a city called Orania in South Africa where Black people are not allowed to live, Indians or any person that is not white. So so I think because they saw that could happen, they figured they can repeat it or reproduce it through Cape Town. But that would not be in the best interest of the white monopoly capital that controls our economy. So it's just a pipe dream eventually. So regarding my question, can I share my screen? Let me see if I.
No problem.
Right. Okay.
And while we're waiting on that, I just want to remind each and every one of you that if you have not done so yet, to that That is right. Make sure that you hit the like button, and if you channel, please subscribe and hit the bell so you know that when we're having these deep intellectual conversations about AI taking over the world and making humans their slaves, you'll be the first people to know. And I see your screen now, so I'm going to share it. Go ahead.
All right. Oh, you do see my screen. Okay. So this is from Wallace Budge's Egyptian Hieroglyphics Dictionary from, I think it's the 33rd edition. So it's on page 107. So I wanted to ask you, the part I've underlined, the definition of mankind, people, kinfolk, relatives.
Hold on 1 second. Did you click on the image and make it big? When you press present, did you make it I don't think you made it full screen. So unshare your screen.
All right, stop sharing. Okay.
All right. So when you press present, press share screen,
Yes.
and then on the right tab, it should be 3. It says entire screen, and then click on the image that says entire screen, and then click share.
All right. From what I can see here, it's a screen sharing tips. Screen sharing is easiest with 2 monitors. Screen sharing works best on a good computer. And then it just says share screen. And then when I say share screen, it says a select window or screen. So
Is
do
it
I
anything
select
that just
entire
says
screen?
yeah?
Do I
Select the
oh
entire screen.
entire screen? Okay. All right. I see. Okay. Let me see if I can.
All right. So
And
now when you go to wherever it is and you make it big, it should show up. Yeah.
is it
All right.
showing now?
That's better.
Way better. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to ask you regarding this dictionary input from Wallace Budge on this word untu for mankind, people, kinfolk, relatives. Have you ever come across it? Would it be a dialect of the
Yes.
ancient Egyptian, or is it a mistranslation, or what do you make of it?
No, it is a legitimate term. And so hold on 1 second. Okay, I want oh, I'm sorry, you gonna say something, Joe?
Oh, just real quick, because you probably going to go into it. I just want to the brother Musoni, that's your name?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
hey, how you
Musoni,
doing? Good. Okay, peace.
I'm
Good to
great.
meet you.
Yeah.
All right.
Peace.
I just want to maybe not for you, but for everybody who looks
that
at
was it?
budgets, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're breaking up. Sorry. No, but people have to be mindful that Budge had created his own transliteration system that's slightly different than the widespread standards that are used. So when you see W N and then a dotted T and then U, that's the way he transliterated it. But in other dictionaries, is you're not going to find it transliterated that way. And um, so you'll be able to see, and probably going to show how it's normally transliterated, and it will be winjut or winduet, and it's a lot of words.
Okay.
So those are legitimate words.
All right. Okay. All right. Let
Exactly.
me unshare
So what I'm gonna
screen.
do is remove. What I'm gonna do is stop sharing your screen, and then I'm gonna share my screen.
All right.
Let me do that. and come here. So, all right. So that word that you just showed, it is built from a monosyllabic root, and which is what I have in the red, bolded in red. So it's the word j. So it's not t as well. Technically, it later becomes t in later Egyptian, but in the earlier Egyptian, this is the so-called j sound, right? And so it comes from body, self, and the body in itself becomes the word for surf. And you see these different forms. So the injet, subject, slave, sajim, servant, and then winjwut, people that you saw earlier, right?
Yeah.
And these is the same. So this is good because this is what Smash be mistaken, thinking that it's the same word for cattle, because in the big plural form, there's a homograph of the word people and a homograph of the word cattle and herd. So he interprets these as being the same, and it's not. This Winjwut, cattle herd, comes from Wiju, cattle. And then the N is put in a let me go back. In this form here where the word for goats is. So it's built off of a monosyllabic root, just like the word for humans, but they just use the same graphemes, but they're not the same words. And so I just wanted to show this. You'll have to come back and analyze this on your own. And in this screen here, I show that the j and the h in the so-called unk words, that they are the same. These are dialect variations. So that j and unk, or inqua, because there's a chet meaning body as well, right? And so they're dialect variations. So when you say inqua or you say into, inqua, into, or both meaning person or life in Bantu languages, right? And this is how they show up in ancient Egyptian language, right? And so what I show here is that when we do the reconstructions for Proto-Bantu, and I know Mboli has his own reconstructions, but these are the standard reconstructions. You can see that this jutu, because the Jew is a prefix which is suffixed here in Egyptian, is tu, meaning body, self. And when you say tui for head, it is missing the nasalized uvula trill, or the bird sign, which manifests itself as a bird sign in Egyptian, meaning head. And so it's missing the second consonant in the sequence. So that's why you see two vowels, because usually in Bantu languages, there's not two vowels in sequence like that, unless you see it written as a long vowel, but not two vowels like this, right? So this is the normal suffix for the word. So this is tui for head, tui for ear, tua for servant. But this servant hides a in the Proto-Bantu, the T became a, feminine T became a as a suffix in Bantu for the feminine, right? And so this and so you see these forms here, and so you see at the bottom here is just a more ancient way of saying the word Bantu, because that W that I have highlighted in green, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so that's the plural in Egyptian. So this one is a feminine plural in this word winjuit, which Budge has, unto, right?
All right.
And unto it, but the t that Budge. So this is what Ujawu was saying, that you got to be careful when you're reading Budge, because the transliteration system that he had is not reflective of the standard in modern Egyptology. So this Unjuit people is cognate with the word unku people, but in isiZulu would be Abantu. And so where isiZulu has ba as the human plural, the Egyptians had the W, and that j is where the t is. That is both prefix in both ancient Egyptian and in isiZulu. And what is that? W is an agent prefix, a pre-prefix, and so that's why you say Abantu. And so they was like Wabantu, or actually it should be it would be equivalent to saying wa into ba chi. or basically it would be pronounced something like wa into ba a, or ba, because the T becomes a later on. So it's the morphology is there, but it's in a different place, if that makes sense, right? So just like how you would have Inkwa in Kikongo, or Bainkwa or Bankwa for the plural. The ancient Egyptians have it as, we say Ankh, but it's more closer to Haniko, Hanikewa, something like that, right? But this what we transliterate as an A is not an A sound. It actually could be a D or a Z sound, which there's a doublet in Kikongo. And so if they say life, they'll say also Zingu. And that's also cognate with this. So there's different ways historically to say, but this is the word Bantu in ancient Egyptian. So I should say that your intuition, has is successful in this argument. But there's work that has been done to prove that.
All right,
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah, thanks for the breakdown. When I saw it, I was like, wait, that sounds like Muntu, so yeah. So and with the word rematch in your analysis that you've done, how the ancient Egyptians use this basically means people, and at the same time it's used as an ethnic name. I saw how that's also parallel to how we use the word, because
I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh yeah. Because I think a lot of people, the word has become famous through the language grouping, which confuses the original use of the word here. But originally, the word just means people on one level, and on another level, when we say Bantu, we refer to Black people in the sense that, for example, when you say in Zulu, Isintu, it's you're referring to a culture, but you discriminate. It's strictly African culture. So, or Shintu in Tonga, it's Shintu. So when someone says Shintu, they're saying you're practicing Shinto. Everybody understands that you're talking about indigenous African culture type of setup here. So I just kind of saw a similarity, a bit of a parallel in the usage of the word.
Trying to find a particular lecture, because people should know that, outside of other political circumstances, let me see if I'm trying to do two things at once. Hold on. Which one is heavier? I think that one's it. All right. Am I doing an analysis here? Right. Okay. So
Yes, that's the one
okay.
I'm talking about. Yes, yes.
Yes. So the it is normal. It's like most folks just use it as a word for person, right? Or
Yeah,
human being or male or spouse, some variation of that.
yeah.
And but there are a few who have used it as an ethnic group. And so one of them is the Oromo. The very word Oromo is the word Remech in ancient Egyptian, because it means a well, it's come to now mean a free person, but it's just a word for person, human being, in the Oromo language. So they're just saying that we're the people in that sense.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in other places, like in this Chiluba in the center here, Mulume, it's just a word for man and husband, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
Nomo in Dogon is just a word for human being, right? Same as Dime. And but I think in Sumerian that word dam is used specifically in terms of a spouse, right? In Nuer, Ram, and Dinka, Ran is just human beings as well, right? And so there, and even in ancient Egyptian, there it wasn't, it wasn't used as an ethnic identifier the entire time,
yeah.
right? That's why they would always say Remech in Kemet, the people of Kemet,
Mhm.
right? But
All
there's
right.
a few texts, like there's this one text, I forgot which one it is. I believe it's of the later period, where there was an influx of Asiatics coming in, and the writer is saying that the foreigner has now become Remech, meaning a
All right.
citizen, like like one of us. Like they're more and more coming, they become born of the soil, but they're foreigners coming out
Yeah,
of Asia. Right. So this is one of the instances where they're referring to the Egyptians themselves. And like when you see on the tomb of Ramesses III, when, even though it's dealing with cardinal directions and all that in the tomb, is using the names of ethnic groups. And so you have
yeah,
Nahisi, Remech, and Chamehu, I think. Or Jabari's favorite word, the Tamahu, the European
yeah,
man. But anyway, so it's not the same. Now I know in Bowley's new work, he has an analysis. I'm not convinced of it because he hasn't see, like here's the word in Dinka in Nuer, person, human, individual, Ram, man, right? But
oh yeah.
so now this wasn't
So Nuer is also an ethnic name in the amongst the Dinka, or
well, Nuer is an ethnic group in language.
oh, all right,
So
okay.
so yeah, so that's but they don't use it as their ethnic identifier like the Oromo do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's just
Oh, but
but a lot of times people didn't have like indigenous names, right? They're just people to themselves. Now
yes, yeah,
they may be named by other people, like when the Maasai came across the people that are now called Dorobo.
yeah.
That's not their name. It's a derogatory name. Essentially, it's calling them poor people, because in Maasai culture, which is a cattle culture, richness is determined by how much cattle you have.
Yeah, yeah,
And the quote unquote Dorobo have no cattle. So they're poor people. But now the
yeah,
name is stuck as an ethnic identity, but they didn't call themselves that, just like Japanese wasn't their original name. It wasn't Japan,
yeah, yeah.
right? Like so when when we have these conversations about ethnic identifiers, we got to say, well, who named them? What did they name themselves versus who named them?
Exactly. Yeah. That way we have. I think we have.
But it was
quite
another
a lot
presentation
to
I
do.
did just on a word match, and I can't find it. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think we also have a fair
I'm sorry.
share
Somebody's trying to
of.
say.
Oh yeah, it's
So I think
Musoni.
there's a slight delay. If you may, sorry, you sounded choppy a little bit, so it may be a little delay.
Oh, I see.
That's it.
My bad. But continue if you were saying something.
Oh yeah. Now I was saying we have a fair share of derogatory names for each other out here as well. So I do understand what you mean, yeah. And there's also another group here in South Africa. They call Basotho. So they call themselves Basotho specifically, but they also use the term secondarily to refer to Black people. So on that part, I do wonder if they started using it secondarily as to refer to Black people, or was it primarily used to refer to just people? Or I don't know how the evolution came about, but presently they use it as they use it in two ways: to refer to themselves as a group, or to refer to Black people in general, basically. Yeah.
Indeed. Hold on one sec. Yeah, that we got to be weary about that, because people try to use that today to try to say that we've always been calling ourselves Black, because there's a few people now in Africa that consider themselves Black, but there's no indication. Like, you can't solely rely on colonial texts, but that's at least the first spot that we got to go to see if the people that they came across had indigenous names that translate into Black people.
Yeah, we actually I've never heard of any ever, actually. Yeah, that's why it's always funny when people try to hold on to the idea of Black. I think a lot of people use the example of Ethiopia, Sudan, and all those examples, forgetting that those are and is it endonyms? I think, yeah. They're not. That's not what the people call themselves. So we don't have any group that calls themselves any word that means Black, actually. Yeah. It's just that, for example, with the Basotho one, it does not mean Black, but they use it to categorize themselves and Black people. But obviously, it's probably within the context of noticing the difference between us and Europeans and Asians that they've come across. Yeah.
You know what happens in this is something that we all experience, but I don't think people notice it like consciously,
Yeah.
is that there's a difference between the referent of a word versus its semantic meaning unto itself. So for example, if the word that you just said, its semantic meaning in and of itself has nothing to do with Black, but
Yeah. In terms of the color,
yeah, but then it could later be used to refer to people that others call Black, and then there's a merge of that association, and then people will say, see, that word means Black. And see that, and that's how a lot of these instances take place, but the actual meaning is not that. It's just that it refers to a group of people that are now being called Black people, and so that's what happens a lot of times. Same thing. And then you have the overt way, like Bilad el Sudan, with the Arabs named Sub-Saharan Africa, basically, and now it's the name of a particular country, and they say it's the land
Yeah,
of the blacks. And then so Sudanese, or if I'm a Sudanese, I'm saying I'm black.
yeah,
you know, so things like that happen.
yeah. No, there's. I think that the confusion to me, it was. I think the first time I heard that the word Kemet meant black people. The first thing I think the first reaction was why were the white people living there as well? Who were they comparing themselves to? But then unfortunately, due to the popular opinion, I sort of put that first voice aside and accepted it for the moment. I think also because of all the debates we're having with these Arabs or Arabized Russian bots, as Assad calls them, on social media. But yeah, if you just use your just basic common sense, the term black is a bit different to how our elders used it. Like for example, in my generation, if you look at our elders, they used it very differently. If you were like growing up, I'd never seen my great grandfather, and they would describe him as a white man. So I pictured him as either mulatto or like Portuguese or whatnot until I saw his picture. Like, this guy is just regular black. It's just light skin. If I were to share the picture, you'd be like, what? This ain't no white man. But to our generation, they sound ridiculous calling him a white man. But yeah, that's obviously about a 60, 70-year gap there. So yeah, because we obviously, our generation have a more Americanized version of understanding black and white, especially South Africa, because it's
We did I did a show some time ago addressing that. I'm gonna see if I can find the slideshow and give some examples. So like there's certain people, like there's certain Africans that consider the Fulanis white folks. Like
yeah,
it would be white or red in
yeah,
their language natively. And so like
exactly.
some early researchers was thinking that it was just white, like white people, the way that we think of white people today, that was roaming all around of Africa, added on to that whole Hamitic hypothesis, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I remember that conversation. You got people mad.
I mean, if I turned on the computer,
Yeah,
that's going to anger somebody.
yeah. But like the crazy part is you could have that conversation with someone in South Africa, let's say a Sotho person, but when they use their language and they refer to someone like Beyonce, they'll say when they describe her skin complexion, they would say "omutweu," which means if you a literal translation is actually she's white. And then when they describe Kelly Rowlands, they would say "omuntu," which means black. So we don't have a word for light skinned. That we just have a word when you translate light skinned and dark skinned in our languages, they all go to black and white. So in isiZulu, if someone's light skinned, umhlophe, and then you say white people, abantu abamhlophe. So but the person using the language will understand the variation of what it means. But the people are unconscious of the actual word that we're using, so they don't understand. So if you bring it from another language, they don't recognize, they don't actually tie it up with their own language. That you're actually using the same language. How the Akan would call maybe the Fulani a white person. we actually use a similar term, but yeah. But with in my region, it's never been used to refer to any group. It's just individuals. So you could have a brother, if you light skinned and your brother is dark skinned, they would just differentiate the two of you with black and white. But it was never, in our region, it was never designated to any group as white or black.
I'm gonna snap that section of the video for a future discussion, because people don't seem to understand that what you just said, because what you just said really kind of answers a lot of what we see in ancient Kemet, especially with the names of folks, right? Because there's certain people with the name Kim in their name, and then Red, and that understanding that they could be similar complexions, one darker than the other or lighter, or it just could be used to separate the names of two people, separate and identify individuals that have the same name, right? Just using those distinctive factors. But people who don't grow up in Africa and understand this from a language and cultural standpoint, they always thinking in terms of American modern racism, and think that it's something more than what it is. I'm sorry, Ujal, you want to say something?
No, I was gonna say the same thing. That's I forget the group of people, but to this very day, there's a group of people. I did a video on it. I just can't remember the name of the group, but they view people from cardinal points by colors. So if somebody in their population came from the north, they're identified as, let's say, white or red. If they come from the south, they're identified, let's say, as blue or green or something, and they're actually called green people in that sense. But there's no literal association. It's just they use it for your place of origin or nativity or whatever the case is. And I forget what group that is. It's in East Africa. And I forgot. I'm about to pull that up. But see, and that's what I try to get this point across, that the entire use of colors in this colorism, when it's a racial attachment, it's a modern social construct that really is very strong in the United States psyche, and then it spills over into the rest of the world by extension. But so our view, like when we see these words and we see these things, we are interpreting through that lens, when that's not the case at all. Just like you had just explained, like if you're light skinned, you could be the same person. You could be of the same tribe and everything, same, have the same mothers and
Even
fathers
brothers,
as your siblings, but you be called white and other people be called black for those reasons, just that by itself. But we'll look at it like, and we read about it in some text, we'll say, see, that's a white person, and that's a black person, and whatnot. And it's
The
it gets
interesting thing I just wanted to add is just even the phenomenon, because I know might be a little stretch, but Rick Ross did indeed call Drizzy white boy.
yeah.
What wasn't he referring to his demeanor or something, his attitude and mindset or something? Sometimes people do use it in that context. To act like a white boy.
It's more so in the context of it's kind of a combination. He may be taking a jab at his mixed heritage, but it's mainly because he did not grow up in the circumstances that would cause him to be, trying to act tough in the modern times, right? Like he grew up very privileged and was a very dorky, like white kid almost. He grew up like a very dorky white kid. Not saying that he didn't have any kind of interactions that had to remind him of his African heritage. However, it's a far cry from where he's trying to be now, where he's wearing, braids and talking about, hitters and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, no, Drake, you was on TV in the wheelchair, fully shaven, and now he rocking the big beard. And I understand he was young then, he didn't have a beard, but it's just all this other kind of stuff that was going into the song itself. And so he was mainly talking about from a cultural standpoint. But I wouldn't be surprised if the if he wasn't taking jabs at his European Jewish heritage as well, because that he's a Kendrick Lamar is a Hebrew Israelite, so he may see himself as a true Jew, and so Kendrick has some double entendres. You gotta do a think piece about
But
his
it's
lyrics sometimes.
interesting though. It's very interesting because when conversations like this get brought up, for instance, Drizzy's one example, but then you have examples like Bob Marley, right? Because I saw the other day a conversation where somebody was basically saying that, well, Bob Marley isn't really black though. And then,
but he he spoke about, see, that's another thing that was addressed by the Kendrick Lamar and things. Like, he doesn't make music for the people and the culture. And this is something that people got to understand about hip hop culture. It grew up, it was born out of the existence of struggles and oppressions, and it has two primary fundamental origins, right? So one in terms of the dance scene for healing purposes, because that when Africans heal, we like to do that primarily through dance and stuff, and not of course if you're just unable, like if you broke your leg, of course you're not gonna throw you on the dance floor and you're gonna get healed. But in terms of your psyche and the like, it is always done through dance. And so that's the healing component of hip hop. And then there's the political component. It's speaking about the issues and what's going on in the culture and with your people at the time. And so Drake is not known for speaking about any kind of issues, anything kind of political or anything to that nature. Like he's outside of the scope. Like he just focuses on bitches and spending money, right? And this is problematic for somebody like a Kendrick Lamar, who's going to hit you with some stuff, but then but also hit you with some everything's going to be all right and other things, right? Like he's speaking from the position of somebody who's inside the culture and not somebody who is it appears like he is trying to just colonize the culture.
Yeah, from what I understand,
financial
from what I
gain.
understand,
But when he
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
hold on, but when he is when certain political things come up, he has nothing to say. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. And from what I understand, the issue arises from apparently his team trying to stop the release of a track that Metro Boomin's team already had. You know what I'm saying? It was the whole what's it called? The title of the track that Kendrick initially with Metro Boomin and what's the name of that just slipped my mind real quick. The track that Metro dropped, because that was initially what started the whole issue.
DBL Drizzy.
No, before that.
I don't keep up with all, like,
okay. So
I got wind of it
anyway,
all like at the end of the beef.
My whole point was just that apparently this stems from Drizzy's team trying to stop a track from where supposedly or allegedly Kendrick is coming at Drizzy, right? So they're trying to sun them. And this is what, you know, when I say them, I'm referring to Metro Boomin's team and everyone that's involved in this track, which Kendrick, you know, has this verse where, you know, he's subliminally coming at Drizzy, and this is what kind of like starts the whole issue. So you know, when he's referring to Drake as a colonizer, and people are not aware of this information, you have a bunch of people who see this as, oh, K Dot is just like reaching and trying to start this moment where, you know, everybody knows that this is really just you know, him trying to, you know, gain momentum from coming at some of the most successful acts we've seen in years. But from my point of view, it's like, if you don't know the fact that this is personal for the guy, right? If you're not aware that for K Dot, this is more of a cultural thing, like you're referring to yourself, where it's like for him, it's like, you know, seeing it from the perspective of, you know, almost like what Push was talking about, you know, you're not from here, you're an outsider, right? So it's like, it's nuanced, right? It's things here that's part of the equation that people are not even aware of, and not even understanding that for Kendrick, this is personal. And you can, even if you analyze this like critically, you understand how surgical this brother was from start to finish. Something that I haven't seen, you know, since, I guess you can refer to Ether, a moment like Ether or whatever, you know, what have you. But it was an exercise in, you know, of course, it's a bit unfortunate, I guess you could say that, you know, brothers are not being productive, you know, because one could say this is not necessarily the best way to go about it. But again, this is about the culture. This is about, you know, people standing on their business, you know, in the end of the day.
Well, personally, I believe that AI started this whole beef,
Right?
and it's
Right?
just sitting in the
Let's talk about it.
background
Let's talk about it.
uh, as the first step to start the civil war, which
Come on now.
justifies Skynet turning on human beings to take over the planet. That's my hypothesis, and I have plenty of scholarship to back up what I'm saying,
And experts.
and that's what I'm sticking to.
Hey, can I share this? If you
Go ahead.
what I have
Let
on my
me
screen,
just make your screen
just
bigger.
big, yeah. So, because you brought back up AI, right? So I just wanted to, I meant to share this last night, but this is ChatGPT again, right? And I asked the question. You can see my question on the screen. I said, what is the best advice to give someone who forms an opinion of someone's research work and its outcomes without actually reading the research or the outcomes of such research? And then ChatGPT, the expert, answers and says, the best advice for someone forming an opinion about research work without actually reading it is: one, encourage informed opinions. Explain the importance of reading the actual research to form an informed opinion. Highlight that conclusions based on secondhand information or assumptions can be misleading. Two, promote critical thinking. Urge them to critically evaluate sources and consider the credibility and reliability of the research. Encourage asking questions about the methodology, data, and context of the research. Three, highlight the value of direct engagement. Emphasize the benefits of engaging directly with the research material. I repeat, emphasize the benefits of engaging directly with the research material, such as gaining a deeper understanding, appreciation of the nuances, and being able to critically assess the findings. Four, suggest access to summaries. If time is a constraint, recommend reading summaries, abstracts, or reviews from credible sources to get a better grasp of the research before forming an opinion. And we can come back to the four. Five, advocate for open-mindedness. Encourage maintaining an open mind and being willing to adjust opinions based on new, reliable information from actual research. And it's the second question I asked ChatGPT. I said, what value does a person's opinion have who forms an opinion on someone's research and outcomes without actually reading the research or outcomes of such research? So I'm asking, what's the value of that opinion if a person actually does give it? It answers, a person's opinion who forms an opinion about someone's research work and its outcomes without actually reading the research or understanding the outcomes has limited value for several reasons. One, lack of evidence. Opinions not grounded in the actual data or findings of the research lack the support of evidence, making them unreliable and potentially misleading. Two, superficial understanding. Without reading the research, the person may miss crucial details, context, and nuances that are essential for a comprehensive understanding of the work and its implications. Potential bias. Number three, opinions formed without engaging with the research are more likely to be influenced by personal biases, hearsay, or incomplete information, which can distort the true nature of the findings. Four, reduced credibility. Such opinions may be viewed as less credible by others, especially those who have taken the time to read and understand the research. This can diminish the person's authority and influence in discussions related to the topic. And then lastly, five, hinder process. Constructive criticism and informed debate are vital for scientific progress. Opinions not based on the actual research do not contribute meaningfully to this process and can even hinder it by spreading misinformation. So I just wanted to highlight that. I meant to show this last night because this underscores one of the points I made last night and even today, the earlier discussion we were having today, that the lack of engaging the actual material, it puts you in a position that I just read that's described, but yet people will advocate and champion and argue online, even though they're in this impotent position. And so that's all I wanted to share, to kind of reinforce that.
Appreciate it. Well, before we go, I just got some interesting news, and I don't know if Brother Musoni is. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the gentleman, but I don't know if you can confirm or not. The passing of Dr. Zulumatabo Zulu. If you're still there, Brother Musoni.
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah. Is it the gentleman that you interviewed a while back?
Yes, I interviewed him 3 years ago.
Yes,
On the channel. So this is the
yes, I
thumbnail.
remember his.
Yeah. So somebody I just got the notice. So it says, so this sister said, it's sad to hear about his passing today. Humanity has really lost. Right. So this just happened today, if she is correct. So this is the elder speaking here on the Mbongi, here on the right hand side, of course, and who's a computer scientist, a historian, as well as a poet. And this is why I try to have a platform to introduce our people to these scholars from around the world. Especially if they're elders, because you just don't know when anyone is going to pass in general. But so if this is in fact true, I want to condolences to his family, and I was really honored to have him on the program those many years ago, and should have had him on again, but life be lifing. And so rest in peace, good brother. Have to do a show and do some more confirmation. And of course, the pseudo killers are on live talking about the family reunion is over. Do the pseudo killers promote appeal to authority, woo and asarimhotep? So ChatGPT has taken over the pseudo killers, and it's an artificial show that's going on right now, talking about us as we speak.
Wow.
So I just wanted to put that out there as well. So,
Yeah,
but
no.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going to end the show now because it's almost 4 hours. And so, but this was just an open forum. I do appreciate everybody who came. I haven't been paying too much attention to the chat, so I have to just kind of watch and kind of skim through to see what the chat was saying. But I do appreciate. I'm sorry.
No, it was one interesting comment that was made, not to be addressed now, of course, but looking for it. It was about a Bantu word in Swahili. Dimbwi is a word, dimbwi, and it means a pool of water or pond. And so the person asked, is it possible that's related to Idebwi in Middle Egyptian? And
I'd have to do the well, Idebwi is more so to do with the banks and the shore than just a pool. But then again, it could be a semantic shift, you know, as the word travel, you know, from the ancestral language. Because hold on. Let's see, English. Sure.
that's maybe something that could be looked into later. But I just
You know, my
lost the count.
ADHD won't allow me to wait.
Oh, Dimbwi.
But it's riverbank shore, but river plot. I'm trying to see bank shore, edge of a wound. Because I think it's more so.
Because this
sorry?
also means a pond. Like it's not. It's a pond too. It's the word means a pond.
I'm trying to see, is he Deb or Woodgab or Woodjab? Because I see shoreline, shoreland, arable fields, meadows. So that's what I'm trying to distinguish. If it's just simply applied to the edge of a water source, or could it just include pools as well? So let me do with Jeb. Manual the cottage. I got to search. Let's see. Folded cloth shore riverbank, of course. Because it depends if that D is a prefix. Because you know, mu, moi is just water a lot in many languages. So let me see. No, that's sure. Yeah, I don't know. I gotta see. Let me see. Let me do my isiZulu dictionary, even though it's not a pool. Because it. Okay, I know exactly. Because for isiZulu speakers is gonna be isiziba or ichibi. And so in Kiswahili it's not going to be like a D prefix in moi, so that it's just going to be a variation of that. And so I would have to do an analysis because we would have to look up, you know, words for pond, lake, stuff like that in Egyptian, and then we would have to do a linguistic analysis for sound meaning correspondences. And so far, just on those terms and those meanings itself, nothing necessarily comes up per se. Ichibi. Well, it does have lake in isiZulu. So let me look for lake. But then again, I'm just looking at one resource here. So this is just a quick lookup.
But that'll be just interesting to look into.
Because it could be a variation of Kim and Kim were, right? But I'll do a linguistic analysis. But I don't think they're necessarily the because I think it's just dealing with a large, body of water, and not necessarily the lakes. I mean the rivers or the lake's edge or something like that. But we'll see. That's a good question. But yeah, we don't have time to really dig through that. But with that being said, I do appreciate each and every one of you for joining the conversation. Brother Muzoni, Brother Wujawu, Chilimwe, our good brother Neil Spite, who was here earlier, and even though he pledged Noop, our good brother Kyle, for joining the panel. And I'm sorry, it sounded like somebody was trying to say something.
Oh, no, I was saying it's a pleasure. Yeah.
Oh, okay, no problem. And so I want to appreciate each and every one of y'all for engaging in the chat and for continuing to support the channel. And we'll have some key interviews soon. Got our brother Black Panther coming up. He released his new text. I got a schedule in Mboli, since we talking about Mboli, and now that I got his new book, and been able to kind of analyze a few of the chapters, and I'm in the process of translating his first book into English for all the English speakers. So hopefully by the end of the year, you'll have an English version of the first book. So that's why I haven't been out and about arguing with you Negroes online like I want to, but I got bigger things to do in the interim. So y'all will benefit. So, but I appreciate each and every one of y'all coming out. And make sure that you like the video and share the video and keep the conversation going, and use ChatGPT at your discretion, and don't try to make ChatGPT an expert so that you don't have to do any work because you're lazy. And with that said, I will end right now.
Yes, that's it. Listen, just the relationship that been fostered with Dr. Jeffries and others, it started with Dr. J about 20 years ago. Actually, it is 20 years ago now. And through him, I met this person, that person, this person, that person, and the relationships were just building, and Felicia and Brittany and Ken and everybody just all came together. Saw through Sister Raketi Yaman, Dr. Raketi Yaman, who suggested we reach out to Asar to help us fulfill our vision in the Happy film to make the linguistic connection between the Seshmetu Necho, the language of our ancestors in ancient Kemet, and Wolof and other African languages. So she said Asar is the person you want to talk to. So hats off to Asar. Brother Asar does an excellent job with that. One of our foremost scholars in that field. I'm just honored to be a part of this experience.
Feeling like I dropped the draw for and caught Uno. Came to kick the door with the game man judo. Pin game low, that's why they give me kudos. Inspired by the 3-0. 595, check it for pack life. Hit the turnpike, slide to a baseline. Gotta sound like I just hit the 8-5. Oh, I'm so ready, by enemies necessary. We gon' be legendary, hold up. About to grow the payrolls. If you see the vision and you're with it, you should say so. Cause we about building, elevating the millions.
This program was created with the love and support of all our Patreon members and subscribers. If you are not a member yet and would like to see more content like this, consider becoming a member today. The link is in the description of this video. Your support is greatly appreciated.